come to order. Could I have a roll call?
John Hutzko.
Michael O'Brien.
Lori G.
John Cutler.
Craig Smith.
Jason Paraskiva.
And if everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have two upcoming meeting dates, one on May 6th and one on May 20th. And we have a couple of sets of minutes to approve. Has everyone had a chance to look at the February 11th minutes?
Yes.
And bear with me. So, do I have a motion to approve? Actually, do we have a quorum for approval? Yes, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Pam, I'll abstain. I was not at that meeting. Okay, and the March 18th minutes, has everyone had a chance to look at those minutes? I have not, actually, no, I have not yet. I'm sorry. Let's hold off on the March 18th. Yeah. Okay. The first item on our agenda is Hilltop Manor for a declaration of DES complete. This is 21 lots off Creek Bend Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. I know in our last meeting we had a few things that we needed from you to be able to finish up the document. Michelle, can I just ask, do we have everything in hand that we were expecting?
On my end, yes, and from my letter, yes.
Okay, and Joe, from your perspective?
Yes, we feel it's ready.
And Brendan?
Same thing, complete, and we'll defer the rest of the questions to the remainder of the process.
Okay. And then Tom, anything on your end? Okay. Any questions or comments from the planning board?
I would just make a comment that as we go forward, obviously the bridge is going to be the big issue. How that's all going to be controlled, and the more specificity you can add, the better.
I acknowledge that. We've done some research, we've already begun the discussion, but I understand that that is both the bridge and secondary access to the property separate from the bridge are going to be the items that need to be ironed out, and we're here to help do that as best as we can for our project and for the neighborhood.
Right. That's not to say that there wouldn't be any other items, but those are probably, like
I
Mike
understand
says,
that, yeah.
the important or
Right.
biggest ones.
And what is the date, and again, I prefer CVs, what is the date of the final DEIS that we will be reviewing?
Well, it's the one that we had from last meeting with the supplements that have come in through today.
Okay.
It was most recently
That's-
resubmitted January 21st, 2014, and there's several supplements that'll go to it. What I will do, we're here tonight to request a notice of completion. The document is still in revision mode. I will, once we get the notice of completion from the board, I will accept all the edits and everything, and then circulate the DEIS as agreed to all involved and interested agencies, and the planning board will be getting a clean copy with all the revisions accepted.
Madam Chair, maybe I just comment about the process for anyone, is that if the planning board deems the document tonight complete, they're merely indicating that they feel that there's sufficient material in this document to create a basis for discussion of all the items that were listed in the
That's correct.
scope.
It's not an approval in any manner.
It's not an approval, that's correct. And that the public hearing then would be set by the board, at which time then the public has the right to comment on any of the issues and material in the document, to raise any other issues or questions. Then following that public hearing, the applicant has to address those comments made at that public hearing and come back to this board with a final environmental impact study. We had been talking about dates, and it might be good to maybe discuss that a little bit before. The earliest date that we thought it could be would be May 20th, but I don't know if that's going to give you enough time to...
Yeah, the process on my end is pretty
You can
straightforward.
do that, okay, because,
Yep.
and we do require that a sign be erected on the property with notice by May 1st, so,
Okay, that's no problem.
okay. So as long as that date works, then.
Yep. So the distribution would also be by
You would have to get it out as under the secret rules.
Right, okay. I'm sure, that's no problem.
So depending when we circulated that, if it was, you're saying May 20th, that means it would have to go out in the next couple of days to ensure at least 30 days review by other agencies.
Let me get the calendar.
That's why I raised the date.
Yeah, I just, I know that's not part of the resolution, but
And we're not looking to short-circuit the process and make everybody nuts. I just, this week's somewhat of a wash. Clearly, by the end of next week, I can have the document distributed to all involved and interested agencies, and that would still be April 25th. So,
And the secret rule is that the public hearing has to be on at least 15 days, but not more than 60 days' notice. So this puts us into the 60 days, not all the way to the end.
and interested or involved agencies, if they commented after the May 20th.
Well, normally with these public hearings, you would leave it open for a period of 10 or 20 days thereafter for any written comments that the agencies would
Short of
might
possible
submit.
adjourning, it's.
Correct.
Okay. All right. It's tight, but.
well, I can easily commit to getting it out. I think I can probably get it out by Tuesday, the 22nd, but I can commit to getting it out, making sure that it's not only sent but received by the agencies, certainly by the 25th. And that, you know, I won't be aiming at the 25th, but it'll be clear that everything will be all in order by that date. And as long as that gives us enough time.
Okay, so I know normally we have the planning office review materials before it goes out. Does that give us enough time to make sure we review the materials before they're going out?
And would work with Pam and I to make sure that we get the notice of completion submitted, we get any notices that have to go to the ENB up on the website, and
And that what's circulated is the final copy with all insertions and all of that?
correct, and we'll also need a web
Why don't we
copy.
just push it to the next meeting?
Not May 20th, but June.
What would be the meeting after May
June
20th?
3rd.
I'm not
June 3rd
looking to
would
make
be the
everybody
following
crazy.
meeting.
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
That would also be fine. If it's more comfortable for everybody, we can just, do you have a problem? No. If June 3rd is more comfortable for everybody, we'll work just as aggressively and we'll have a few extra.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I'm fine with that. I mean, we just have to make sure everything goes out with right notice times and all of that. Otherwise, you end up with a public hearing we can't open.
And we don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Clearly, we don't want that to happen. So
Okay.
we'll work with June 3rd, and as I said, we'll work just as aggressively to get everything out as quickly as possible.
Okay. Before we offer the resolution, are there any other questions or comments? Board members? Okay, does someone want to offer the resolution?
Make a motion to declare the EIS for Hilltop.
Yeah, the whole
Do we have
resolution.
a resolution? Oh,
Yeah, we
we
have
do?
a
Yeah, we do
resolution.
have a resolution, you see?
Okay.
You lost your shot there.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay, accepting Hilltop Manor subdivision DEIS as satisfactory with respect to its scope, content, and adequacy for the purpose of commencing public review. Resolution is offered by Planning Board member John Cutler. Whereas this board adopted a final scope for this project on November 1st, 2005, and whereas the applicant undertook the DES, and whereas on October 3rd, 2006, a draft was determined to be incomplete, and whereas on May 19th, 2008, a new draft was submitted and determined incomplete on July 15th, 2008. Whereas a revised DES was submitted on March 23rd, 2010, August 22nd, 2010, December 20th, 2012, and April 23rd, 2013. And whereas the final draft was received on January 24th, 2014, discussed on March 18th, 2014, and is on the agenda for consideration tonight. Now therefore be it resolved that the draft DES submitted on January 24, 2014, as supplemented through today, is accepted as satisfactory with respect to its scope, content, and adequacy for the purpose of commencing public review. And be it further resolved that a public hearing on the DEIS will be conducted by this board at its regular meeting of, we're going to do June 3rd at 7 p.m. And be it resolved that the appropriate notice will be published, posted, and mailed as required by the seeker rules. And be it resolved that a sign 4 feet by 6 feet shall be erected on the site near the public road upon which it has frontage for at least 20 days prior to the public hearing. Be it resolved that within 5 business days of the adoption of this resolution, the chair or other duly authorized member of the planning board shall cause a copy of this resolution to be filed with the town clerk and a copy sent to the owner applicant.
Okay, hold on before we have a second.
Sure.
Tom, we corrected the date on the public hearing. Are there any other additions or corrections?
No.
Okay.
Ms. G, the date on the document is actually January 21st, probably was received by the town on January 24th, but it's dated the 21st, and I don't want there to be any
January
confusion.
21st?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other changes or comments? Okay, do I have a second?
So moved.
Thank you, John. And votes as follows. John?
Aye.
Hutsko, sorry.
There's 2 of us.
Sorry about that. Jason?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
John? Cutler?
Aye.
Aye, and myself, aye. The motion carries.
Thank you. Different towns handle this differently. You want the date on the document to remain January 21st, or do you want an updated date as of today?
No, it would be
January
January
21st.
23rd as updated through
Okay,
today's
fine.
date.
Right.
So that's what you wanted to say
That way
on
it'll
it?
be consistent,
Okay,
yeah.
fine, no problem. Very well. And can I get a copy of the resolution from Pam tomorrow?
Yes,
Yes, okay,
absolutely.
great.
Yep.
Very good. And I will be in contact with Pam and Michelle in terms of the requirements.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a minor modification to the site plan for Stewart's. This is a proposed addition on Route 82 in Lake Walton Road.
Good evening, I'm Chuck Marshall, the real estate representative from Stewart's. What I disseminated tonight and placed on the overhead, which I'm actually very proud of myself, this is the 3rd time I've appeared before this board, and the first time I remember to actually make an electronic version. In regard to the Stewart's at Route 82 and Lake Walton Road, 2 of the comments that came from the professionals were the dumpster location. So what you have in front of you is a dumpster location, I think, that better addresses keeping it on the closer to the Stewart side and not moving it toward the residential. The reason I bring this up first versus going through some of the other site plan changes is that because we made this change today, we weren't able to reflect it. So the edge of pavement and the parking location would be different on this than other sheets in regard to decibel levels and lighting and stuff like that. But those values would remain. The edge of pavement and parking locations would just change, provided that the site plan was acceptable to the board tonight.
Okay.
So this project is a 800 square foot building addition, which is roughly a 20-foot addition along Route 82 in the back by the dental park. and then 40 feet which matches the width of the building. We will also do roughly 120 square foot freezer addition that is closer to the residential neighborhood or residents. With this, we will move the dumpster to keep it essentially almost where it is on that side. Provide a overhang the overhang will have fencing around it that will match the dumpster enclosure fencing to screen the totes and other things that end up behind the stewards post-delivery. The delivery door will be moved closer to what we call the back of the property, so that internal to the store, they can access the freezer and walk-in cooler, which is really one of the things that this is all about. The current store is tight, if many of you have visited it. What we'll do is we'll push everything back essentially. It's a proposed floor plan. We'll push everything back. We'll create a little bit more room before people enter the counter. We'll add an additional customer access bathroom. Both customer access bathrooms will be placed in the corner of the building, I guess to the southwest corner of the building. And then just expand the aisle width really is what this is all about. Outside, we'll extend the building, but to minimize the effect that has on the Route 82 elevation, we're going to center the sign. I will bring the mansard roof 20 feet around on the dental side, and we'll match the mansard on the gas canopy. We will also be changing tanks for the gas. I do not think that these two things will occur simultaneously because of a spacing issue on the site, but they will happen in very short sequence thereafter. The gas tank change is a voluntary change by stewards. As we went through the first time we introduced the project, we're ahead of DEC when it comes to compliance. So all of our tanks are going through upgrades now to the double wall fiberglass tanks. I was, in the professional letter, I was informed that we would still need to file a permit with the town, but that activity is typically regulated by DEC, in which we're compliant.
Check your intent is to stay open throughout this, correct?
Correct.
Did we hear back from the neighbor?
I did speak with Mr. Murray. We did install new fencing in between the two properties. We did some tree work for him. Unless he's here tonight, I mean, his intention was to, he was okay with it on our side of the fence. I mean, he kind of knew what was going on. And I did send a copy of the letter I sent him to Pam.
So with the pavement towards the back, is this primarily going to be employee parking?
Yeah, that's currently what it is now. I mean, those 3 spaces are just relocated from existing spaces and primarily employee used. What we do is lighting for the store is a half hour before it opens and a half hour after it closes. So the person that opens the store and closes the store is going to and from their car with a light. So over the delivery door, there will be a light, and the intent is to have them park so it's lit and, provide a safe environment for the employee.
Okay. And is that shielded lighting so that it's not spilling onto the...
Yeah, we provide a photometric plan. When we do the canopy upgrade, all of our lighting goes to LED lighting, which includes soffits, the gas canopy, and any pole lights that are located throughout the site.
And the light on the back door?
Shielded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there pole lights in the back? There should... I'm not seeing that. Michelle, do we have the photometric plan?
I think I do, yeah.
Does not look like there's pole lights. It does look like there's one wall pack light.
for the permit to be issued or something? I'm assuming we're gonna require some sort of fencing to be around, so we don't have.
With the gas tanks? Yeah, but he
Yeah.
he has to get a permit to do that, and he has to come in and draw a permit from us also, and they'll work that out at that stage.
Okay, so as far as what's gonna be required on the site as those tanks are
Right,
being
and he's
replaced, it's not.
indicated
No, I just wanna
tonight-
clarify, it's not something the planning board does because this is a replacement
No,
of
it's just a
existing tanks, it's not a
replacement, and
change
it's
to
a
the
building
site plan.
permit and a Department of Health, I guess, is it, or
Or
DEC?
DEC.
DEC, because of the size.
But same number of pumps as you have today, no change to the
Yeah,
configuration?
the
or-
configuration isn't changing, it's just underground.
Okay.
And an upgrade to the canopy top.
With LED lights and again,
Yeah, with LED lights and the mansard roofing. That was a request of the ARB.
okay.
It doesn't look like there are pole lights there, it looks like there's just the wall pack lighting.
Okay. So Michelle, is that sufficient lighting at night for the employee spaces?
Yeah, I'm
And
looking
is
at
it too
the-
much light to spill over onto the neighboring property? Because
There's,
the neighbor here is residential.
There's only a little bit of light spillover, about a tenth of a foot candle. However, the lighting, the photometric plan can't consider the fencing that's there. So I think once the fence is there, you'll
fairly
really cut
nominal.
the light spillover.
Okay, and you said you installed some
The
additional
fence is
trees?
installed in new stockade fence.
Okay, and you said you installed some trees or something like that as well?
There
Or that's
is
towards the
some
front.
vegetation along here. as
There's
well, which-
existing vegetation. We, in coordination with attempting to be a good neighbor and knowing that we were going to do this project, when we did the fence, removed some trees for Mr. Murray.
Okay. Michelle, anything on your end that we should be talking about?
No, I mean, Chuck addressed the moving of the refuse container, which I had recommended, which was great. And then the only other thought I had was wherever you might be able to add some landscaping, the applicant might want to consider adding some landscaping to make the frontage a little prettier along 82. And some of it is DOT property lines. I'm not sure how much room that they actually have out there. But
Okay.
if there's any possibility for adding some landscaping, it would be.
So I see a
nice.
couple of proposed pines. Are you talking up closer to 82?
I was thinking along the road frontage.
Okay. Anything from Morris?
We had a comment about clarifying the phasing, but that was thinking that both the interior work and the tank work were going to happen at the same time. If it seems like they're not, then it won't become as congested. But if your plan changes and you want to do them simultaneously, then we might want to know some more details about, access at those times and making it clear how the flow is going to be. I think Brendan had similar comments about the traffic flow. If the work is going on and the stores remaining open. The other stuff we'd already talked about, so I think it's okay.
Brendan, it looks like there's just minor changes to the back lot where they're moving a couple of parking spaces. Was there anything from a site circulation or
Well,
traffic
the only,
perspective?
just really during construction, that's the only comment that I would add, and just add to what Joe was saying, in that the construction plan that you shows fencing around the tank replacement area, but it does segment the site from 82 to Lake Walton. So I didn't know if any potential of modifying that, because granted, you're not going to get fuel delivery trucks, but you're going to get other delivery trucks to come in and drop stuff off, and whether they can actually get in there, and if cars are in there and be able to turn around and do what they need to do to make deliveries, if a good chunk of the site is fenced off. I happen to live by the Stewarts in Salt Point, which are doing something more than that, but similar. And I do know that they did keep it open from both access points. I think it really does help the circulation.
Yeah, we don't have any intention to change the access point, so it'd be open from both sides. It would get tight, obviously, right with the corner entrance store. It would get tight right in front of the entrance because that's where you lose the most distance to the canopy. But I don't think from a goods delivery perspective, because it all occurs on the back side of the store, I don't think that, the truck pulls in and then backs around. So that maneuver is actually a thing, because on the way out, just drives forward.
It's also just even with vehicles, trying to allow them the safest way in and out. If someone wants to go back out onto the main road, if they had both ends open, they could make safer right turns as opposed to having to take the left side of your site.
Yeah,
If it's segmented.
Right, and then this is where it's difficult, it's difficult being the applicant, where we just say, just trust us. But there will, again, it will be internal to the lot. And Stewart's deals with a very small amount of site contractors. And we deal with a small amount of site contractors because we keep all of our stores open during modifications like this. So they understand their responsibility in routing traffic and keeping it clean so that that doesn't affect how the store operates.
Well, I'm just actually commenting on the plan that was submitted, where it shows that it's fenced off. It doesn't show that you can drive, between the two roads. If you looked at your own construction phasing plan, it shows perimeter construction fencing that, there's a stockpile there, and it actually segments the access between 82 and Lake Walton Road. So, if that plan can get changed to show that you're going to allow that interconnection on your site, then I think, there's not the issue that I'm talking about.
And Brendan, that's strictly from the tank removal or replacement, I should say.
Correct.
It was a little different than previously discussed. Internally, I think we can work it out, but
I think at a certain point, you would go to the building department to request the permit for that, and
Yeah.
at that time, I think to Brendan's point, you need to present a plan that shows adequate circulation at the site, or you may,
yeah,
So-
it's understandable.
if that's an adjustment you can make to your construction documentation, that would be good. Michelle, did we determine what the sound?
Yes, I did. I shared it with my noise folks, and the decibel levels that were on the plan were correct for what are standard noise levels of those. The issue that we have is we weren't there to take the existing noise levels, so we had to trust that what was on the plan was exactly what was out there. And it did seem, in other words, we didn't take the noise levels ourselves. They had their professional do it. The noise code in the town has a requirement of, or anything over 70 decibels within 10 feet of a residential property line. So they're about 20 feet from the residential property line, and it goes from 71, right where the compressor for the addition is, and then slowly and gradually drops from there. So they're within the code requirements.
Okay.
And when I shared it with the noise people, they thought the noise levels that they were showing for all the different types of uses were the correct levels.
Okay, is there any type of, to your point, landscaping around where this compressor is going to be, or anything that we would do to additionally filter the noise? Or
I
are we
mean, the
comfortable that we're
fence
within?
will help a little bit, and obviously any vegetation will help. There's going to be, you're dealing with road noise there, which is typically louder than anything that you're going to hear from a compressor. So
Okay.
it's just,
What's our average for road noise? Because this is proposing to be about 59 decibels right at the property line.
I don't know what the average is.
So the average for a passenger car at 50 miles per hour at 50 feet is roughly 68
loud.
decibels. A conversation at 3 feet is roughly 60.
Okay.
We propose to be 50. A quiet room is 40. So somewhere between this conversation, minus the microphone, and a quiet room.
Okay. And you've installed, you said, a stockade fence
Along the property line.
along the property line. Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? We're specifically looking at the small addition because the tank removal and replacement is, again, not part of the site plan since it's not a change to the site plan. So Tom, is this something we do, just to clarify, just do by motion if the board elects it as a...
Laura, because
Oh,
it's,
sorry, I didn't hear what you
you
said.
just do it by motion,
Okay.
right, as long as it's in the record and there's a memo on the file.
Is there anyone that has concern that this is not a minor modification to the site plan or wants to discuss that? If not, do I have a motion to approve the Stewart's proposed addition on Route 82 and Lake Walton Road as a minor modification to the site plan?
So moved.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a Mission Church additional sign on Route 52.
Good evening, Eric Bowe, Lane Associates. Nice to see you again, and this is Michelle.
Michelle Massey, Director of Mission Church Academy.
So if you don't mind, I'll have Michelle open and just explain the point of the sign and why you'd like it there.
The point of the sign is merely just to acknowledge that our school is there. So we want to let people know that we are there, and it's just a friendly sign with the title of our school.
The sign they're proposing is what we consider a minor revision to the site plan. It's located right here on the plan, which you'll see as you come up the driveway. It'll be off to your right. It's approximately 160 feet off the traveled way. And the sign is reasonably small. It's only about 10 square feet, not too much larger than the plan there. So
this is not a sign to advertise up by the road, it's a sign to direct people who are entering the property where
it's more of a directional sign than anything else. So it's about, like I said, about 10 square feet, and it's well onto the property such that you probably wouldn't even notice it from the road. The sign's not proposed to be lit, and there's an image of the sign proposed on the left-hand side of the plan.
Okay, do we have copies of that up here, Pam? I'm sorry, I don't have a copy with me, just to... Perfect, thank you. So it's just on two posts and...
Two posts, freestanding, 6 feet high.
Okay,
All right.
very good. Michelle, any comment, concerns? Joe?
No, I just, you said 6 feet high. I think one of the sketches might have shown it as 16.
No, it's it had shown as 78.5
Okay.
inches
But
high.
on the plan, it was maybe called out to be 16 feet in
Oh,
height.
sorry, that 16 and a half feet was the dimension to the curb line.
Oh, okay.
Just to
All right.
sort of locate you on the plan.
All right. It's fine.
Oh, I see what you mean.
That would be taller than the building.
Brendan, any concern? It doesn't look like it's in the way of any of the travel ways.
Yeah, I think based on the size and it's off the road, I think you're fine.
Okay. Tom, anything on your end?
I have a question about the project itself.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I think it's beautiful. I think you guys did a great job.
Glad you think so.
I noticed on the old church building, you still have some old siding that's still there. Are you guys going to be putting new siding? I know new siding comes up to the old, but
Right.
looks like there's a couple sections of old siding.
Right, I understand. Unfortunately, I'm just the site engineer, and my office did the architecture, but I'm not intimately involved in the,
But was the plan, you know if the plan was to complete that, or?
like I said, I'm unfortunately not the one to ask.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with where they planned on bringing the siding to.
All right, just,
Sorry.
I don't know, kind of looks out of place. Just, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I don't think I've seen it
No.
recently, no.
It's beautiful.
No, I think it's beautiful. It's just, I think just the old part of the church, you have a couple small sections of old siding. You think they would have completed that nice, beautiful siding onto the old part of the church. Just, it's very noticeable. I don't know.
Sorry.
Just
I don't know.
just an observation, that's all. Just
Okay.
didn't know if it was going to be complete.
I know they're not quite done, so it's
No,
entirely
and
possible
they might
they
not be
might.
done.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments from board members? All right, do I have a motion to approve the Mission Church additional sign on Route 52, internal to the property with about 10 square feet?
So moved.
And a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion item for the John Jay Gas Station on Route 52.
We are back. And you've probably had the correspondence from DOT. But let me give you the positives first. We did submit to the health department for subsurface septic, water extension. We've been dealing with DEC in regards to extending the water main across 52 to the parcel property line. That's been submitted. We're anticipating our first review back, hopefully this week, from the health department. Working with the DOT has been a little bit frustrating. I know we've had a couple of meetings, both our office, Brendan, and we've also had a couple of site visits out with DOT. And I think we were kind of led to believe that the light was enough of a mitigation factor to support its warrant. We had a letter come back from DOT stating that they did not accept the light at that location based upon the warrants. If Brendan's put together a pretty comprehensive letter that kind of goes through the traffic aspect of it, but we are close to meeting the warrants according to his letter. DOT did approve conceptually the entrance configuration with the recurbing that we've done. We've also identified some aspects of providing increased pedestrian access across 52 along Lake in front of Archway, as we discussed at our numerous public hearings. So the big question is obviously mitigation of traffic and Lake Drive. I've had some conversations with Brendan, and our discussions have led to bonding of the possible bonding of the light, allowing the applicant to begin construction of the building, and then 6 months to a year after we're in operation, analyze the intersection, analyze the real traffic numbers that are generated from the site and how they relate to the school, and then revise the traffic analysis to see if the warrants are met. I know Brendan can speak on how that would be put together, but the applicant all along has been willing to do improvements to the intersection. I know in the beginning we did do the realignment of Lake Drive. We did that go around with the DOT. It went to public hearing. Obviously, it brought up some concerns with the alignment of Lake Drive toward the back of the parcel. And then we kind of took a step back and we looked at the actual Lake Drive staying where it is and then incorporating a traffic light. So the applicant has spent, I want to say, almost a year and a half just dealing with the DOT issue and providing mitigation for the traffic at that intersection. I just want to know that the applicant is committed to working with the board, working with the public, and dealing with the issue. And I can kind of lead into Brendan to the traffic aspect and how we move forward from this point.
Before we do that, I know you said you made some progress on other things. Is there anything else about the original approval that needs to be changed or that is looking like a change other than the light and the issue with the DOT?
We've done our analysis for the water line extension. The exact details of how we come across 52, we've always shown a generic location for the water main crossing. We just had our FOIL research back that show existing utilities within the DOT corridor. The location of the boring may be adjusted slightly from where we originally showed it, but the intent is to bring it down Lake Drive to the end of the property. With respect to the location of the subsurface septic, the area has shifted. With remediation of the site, we're going to be pulling some material out and then bringing new clean material in, more of a sand and gravel based. I think the extent of that, maybe subsurface wise, was not shown on the original plan, but it's kind of been added, and we've added more detail on how exactly the septic's going to work. Landscaping remains the same, curbing remains the same, lighting remains the same, circulation remains the same. It really comes down to the traffic and how we handle it.
Before we open up for discussion, Brendan, I know you've been talking to the DEC and trying to arrange a discussion so that we can have...
The DOT, right.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
DEC.
Sorry, DOT.
DEC,
Excuse
DOT.
me.
One of the Ds, yes.
Excuse me.
The state.
The state.
So do you want to just maybe catch us up on that, and then we can open the discussion on what the next steps will be?
Yeah, just, not to make things more complicated, just even try to simplify them. When I look at this and what we've been through and what we've looked at and analyzed, At the end of the day, it's my professional opinion that a signal at this location is the best solution. So, I don't think we should give up on that. I did take a closer look at the signal warrant analysis. As Brian alluded to, we were kind of led on a path with DOT where everything seemed to be lining up, and then all of a sudden it got shot down. But subsequently, we have arranged a meeting to meet with the DOT next week to discuss this project and some other projects within the corridor. I think the project as it stands right now is close to meeting the warrant, and with the other stuff that's being proposed in the corridor, this development has potential to draw more traffic. And what makes this one a little bit unique is that the access is onto Lake Drive. So, it has the impact to that neighborhood behind it, which is, different than if it just was existing on 52, standalone. And that's what creates sort of the situation. The level of traffic that's on 52 right now, it's in the peak hours, it's in the 600 to 900 cars in both direction range, which sort of, if you add more traffic, it's that's not going to control the signal warrant. What's going to control the signal warrant is how much traffic is on Lake Drive. And it's really close to meeting sort of some, the next step up in the warrant, which is, right now it meets the peak hour warrant. The next warrant up from that is what they call the 4-hour warrant, where there's enough traffic and delay is expected for at least 4 hours of the day. It's close to that, and we're going to actually take a closer look at the crash experience too, because that's another contributing factor. They have specific criteria for it, but add these all together, it's not generally, if you meet one of the warrants, you're okay. If you meet one warrant or two warrants and then you come close on some other warrants, then they'll look at it a little bit. I think it's, it's going to be to our advantage to have the DOT as an audience to discuss it, and actually wanting to walk out of the meeting with a strong understanding from them, what is actually needed for the approval, because we didn't get that at the meeting we went to.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
You're going to right where I wanted to go. What happened? You said everything is going along, and also.
I just, part of it might have been the audience that we had at the DOT. We never got sort of clear, concise answers. We did, on multiple occasions, attempt to have a meeting to go in to talk about the project, with the proper audience, and I don't think we got there. And but what they let us, the path they led us down was, submit what you have, expand the traffic a little bit, talk about the rest of the corridor. Those things we did, but at the end of the day, the warrant analysis that was submitted comes close in other aspects of the warrant, but the only warrant that it actually met was the peak hour warrant. And they shot it down for that. But the people that we sat down and spoke with are not the people that reviewed the warrant analysis. So there's that little bit of a disconnect too. And, that's something that needs to be overcome. I still, even as Brian alluded to, I think if an approval from the DOT is not going to be imminent, if it needs to be demonstrated to them that the traffic is actually going to be there, then, that's the concept of bonding something and then looking at it in pretty short order after it's opened up and there's a CO.
Okay. But I guess, I agree with you. I think we were fairly confident that the signal is warranted, and I don't mean to use the same word as a technical term, is needed based on the level of this development, right? So we're increasing the number of pumps, we're changing the nature of the building and the site, all within permissible levels, but still, it is an increase. So I guess I'm concerned if the meeting with the DOT doesn't lead us to having a change of their decision to allow us to install the light. I think we need to probably revisit exactly what we're going to do. And I hear you about the bonding. The problem with the bonding is, depending how long that bond is going to be out there, if the time comes and goes and we don't meet whatever the DOT requires, then there's no light there, and we have the same development that's proposed right now.
Sure. I indicated that it was my belief that a signal is the best solution, but there's also the solution of reducing the level of development. It's tricky though, because it's the traffic generation for what's being proposed and what's existing there are dramatically different.
So you said we're close to meeting the 4-hour. Now we know that there's other changes happening in and around this site, there's potential
Yeah, that's something I
realignment
was
of
trying to
auditorium.
clarify in my letter, that
Okay.
if the changes were happening and adding traffic to Lake Drive, it helps the warrant. If there's developments that are happening that are adding more traffic to Route 52, it doesn't help that much, because the level of traffic is already there. So it's the intersecting, the intersecting traffic that controls the sort of the next warrant. So it's actually the traffic on Lake Drive.
One of the applications that's in process right now is potentially realigning Auditorium Drive, which would be intersecting traffic on the other side of the road. Is that?
True.
Does that matter, or is that not?
That has some potential. I mean, that has to happen, obviously.
Right.
Even if that was to happen, and even the school was able to make a connection to Auditorium Drive, that could certainly add at least 1 hour in the PM. And
Probably in the AM as well.
Well, there's no, the AM hour is already there. The AM hour right now is already with the school.
Okay.
The PM hour is actually not when school is dismissed, it's actually after school. So it would add a PM hour, and the sports dome wouldn't add anything in the AM. It could conceivably extend the evening peak, but, we don't know, at this point in time, we don't know where that peak is going to fall. It might fall with the existing peak out there, so you make the peak worse, but you don't add another hour. That's kind of what...
But it's the school and the dome that would both be using that road.
If the school and the dome used it, I mean, you could pretty much guarantee you're going to add at least 1 hour. So, right now, there's the PM peak hour and the morning AM hour, and because the morning hour is early, the next hour from 8 to 9 and from 9 to 10, where there's still a lot of traffic on 52, those hours are really close, and those are the ones that I think, would tip the scale. And then you potentially would have 3 qualifying hours in the AM and 1 or 2 in the AM. And, it's a 4-hour warrant. There's also an 8-hour warrant, which, we'd need substantial more traffic on both of those legs to meet an 8-hour warrant.
It's just amazing, there's so much traffic there right now, so, depending on the time of day.
Right.
So Brenda, we have a meeting scheduled with the DOT, that's happening soon?
It's happening on the Monday, the 21st. So, I think I'll be able to report back, pretty much to the board instantaneously after that.
Okay.
I'm kind of struggling with this because, the applicant basically, was willing to do everything, including
Agreed.
rerouting. And there's this entity out there that it doesn't seem to matter what we decide or approve, that, is kind of vetoing what we're trying to do here. So it's, I think if we go forward with any kind of further proceedings here, I'd really like to see DOT come here and be part of this, because it seems meaningless without them.
Well, I think the purpose of the meeting that we're having is so that we get an updated letter from them that either changes their decision, or if it reaffirms their decision, then we need to have the conversation with the applicant what the alternatives are and where we go from here.
Right, I'm saying if that doesn't rectify things.
And
They're
Brenda,
hard to
that's
nail
all-
down, Mike. That's unfortunately the nature of it. So.
And that's where the frustration comes in for the applicant, because we've talked about the traffic light for 6 months. And just knowing how DOT responds, and hopefully we get the right personnel at the meeting, are we going to get an answer? Is it going to take 4 weeks, more analysis? We'll get back to you. I think it's a time frame aspect that is the frustrating part of it, and that's why the applicant was willing to bond the traffic light, study the intersection, how it interacts with the school, dome, orthopedic associates, even though the level of service, the level of vehicle traffic increase on 52 is a contributing factor, but not a factor forcing the traffic light. He's willing to do that too. So applicant is very willing to work with DOT, as frustrating as they have been.
I think we need to see where we end up after the meeting on the 21st. Because if that's successful, then we're where we need to be. If it's not successful, then we need to figure out what the next steps are.
You confident? What time frame
Well,
is?
it's not that we're going to submit something for review. I mean, my mission for that meeting is to actually walk out of there understanding from the DOT that if we meet, if this is what you need to approve a signal, then, that's the answer we're looking for. Not to, because then I think the process can move forward.
Who's going to be at that meeting?
From the DOT's perspective?
No.
Oh.
Are you?
We would be there.
Yep, he'll certainly be invited, and the town engineer and myself.
Would it be possible to get on the next available planning board agenda after that?
Yeah.
We should have something in hand, concrete from DOT, and then we can kind of steer the applicant based upon DOT's conversation on where we take this next.
Yep. May 6th is the next meeting, and that's, we'd have you on.
Okay. I think that's all we can do. Okay. It would, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. And again, if there's anything else that you think needs to change, the other things you described, some minor, typical type things, if there's anything else that comes up in the meantime, let's make sure we know.
We don't mind. Do public hearing schedule next.
There's any way in May 6th we could discuss a public hearing or anything like this? Regardless what the decision comes in from DOT, is it positive or negative? I mean, it's out of my
That is
hand.
an alternative you have. We could schedule you for public hearing. You're going to have to send notice out, so it probably wouldn't be May 6th. I think it would be May 20th is the soonest because you can't get the notice out in time for a May 6th meeting. If you want that to be a public hearing,
You want it?
certainly amenable to it. Brendan, do you feel like we'll have the direction we'll know from the DOT whether we're,
Yeah, I mean, I think I have the right audience at the DOT,
Your
but-
situation is if the DOT says,
kinda-
we think you can meet the warrants and the signal can be installed as you're currently approved, then you don't really need a public hearing. So
You want to roll this on?
if you want to do that, it's going to be your expense, and then it may be something that's not
We rolled the dice
necessary.
before they got denied.
We'll do it on
We
20th.
already got denied from DOT, and I hope we could get it this time.
Can we agree, though, if we start talking about public hearing, that it is limited to traffic?
It would be specifically to discuss the issue that's arising where they can't meet the terms of their approval. It'll be a public hearing, so the discourse can be
You can't.
public, but we would target the discussion to be specifically around what the mitigation is for this situation.
You want to do the 20th?
Okay.
At least you're advertised.
We have no choice.
It sounds like we want to push for the public hearing on the 20th.
Okay.
If DOT comes back with a positive response, should we be in a position to cancel the public hearing? Or open and close it with no change? I mean, how would that work? If we come back with a positive response?
Open and hear comment.
I'm trying to think how many days
That's
you
all.
have from the 21st. You would still be within 30 days. Tom, would we be able to say if the meeting from the DOT doesn't provide indication that the light would be able to be installed as per current approval, that they could advertise? What's that?
Then they wouldn't advertise.
If it was able to be installed, they wouldn't advertise, but if it wasn't able to be installed, we could have them advertised and put them on for the 20th. I know that's a little bit unusual, but I recognize that we've really had you in
I think
here.
it's 25 days is what the ordinance says.
From the 21st, it's plenty of time, so.
Yeah.
All right, let's do
I mean,
that.
I'm amenable to that, you just wouldn't
Let's do that.
advertise.
That way
it.
everything's covered and
Don't, yeah.
rather save 2 weeks than lose 6.
Okay. If you advertise for the public meeting, you wouldn't be on the 6th. If you're not advertising, I'd still just like to have an update, and maybe Brendan, you can just provide the board with an update. You don't necessarily have to come in, but provide us with an update on the 6th, just to let
Yeah,
us know
absolutely.
the
Right.
results of the meeting.
Right, I mean, and, just so everyone's clear too, I mean, we're not going to walk out of the DOT on Monday with an approval. We're going to walk out with an understanding of
But
whether.
you're going to have hopefully you'll have a direction that gives you a sense of we're almost there,
yeah,
or
yeah,
no way
or
this
no
isn't
way,
happening
right.
without some sort of extensive
Yep.
additional study or.
Right, and
you know,
then we
waiting for
can
it to be installed.
figure out from an applicant standpoint on what we want to do.
Okay, all right. So do I have a motion? Do I need a motion to schedule motion to schedule a tentative public hearing for May 20th with the applicant to circulate within 25 days prior, depending on the result of the DOT meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I do appreciate the board working with us, thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Orthopedic Associates site plan on Route 52 as a discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Christopher Lapine with the Chazen Company, representing the applicant this evening. With me is the CEO, Jennifer White, of Orthopedic Associates as well. Orthopedic Associates has purchased the former Junction Route 52 restaurant opposite the IBM West Complex along Route 52. It's located within the B1 zone. Its current use consists of a restaurant and apartment above. It's approximately 6,000 square feet of footprint of the building, and the associated apartment above is approximately 800 square feet. This is a project that was previously approved in 1985 by the town of East Fishkill. Orthopedic Associates plan right now consists of a two-story medical office building. Each floor consists of 6,000 square feet for a total of 12,000 square feet. There would be 84 spaces provided to meet the minimum requirement of 80. Right now, the current parcel has parking right up against the right-of-way boundary. It's our intent to create some sort of a landscape buffer between the right-of-way and the parking aisle. We don't believe we're going to be able to meet the 50-foot setback that's required by the town code because of the existence of the septic system and wetlands in the rear of the property. However, we are trying to maintain somewhere between 20 and 25 feet. The parcel is served by private water. We would intend to utilize the existing well. We have had some preliminary discussions with the town engineer. It's our understanding that the existing water line along Route 52 does not have the ability to serve this site as it's maxed out its capacity with the dome project, but we do have the opportunity to connect to it for fire service. The existing septic in the rear of the property was sized for a flow of about 2,300 gallons a day. We're not going to be near that capacity, so part of our plan is to remove a portion of that septic in the back to allow for some additional parking so we can create that landscape buffer along the front of our property. The site's previously served with 2 access points along Route 52, full movement at each point. There's an existing left turn lane that comes into the site. It's got a queue of approximately 3 cars. Our intent is to reduce the entry points down to 1 for the property. We are looking to focus that point at the eastern portion of the site. I just heard some prior dialogue regarding the light at Lake Walton Drive and Route 52. What we've done for our particular project here is we've broken down the number of patient visits that'll occur between our hours of operation, which would be between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. typically on an everyday basis, although the MRI will be open on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays until 7 p.m. They schedule 1 per hour. We're more than happy to forward that to your town engineer so that they can include that in their study. For their meeting with the DOT, we've also talked to Mike Gillespie and Associates about trying to collaborate on the traffic as a whole for this area as the town is trying to secure this site, which we know is desired. We are in the process of delineating the wetlands, doing our field survey on this property. We have done a geotechnical investigation, and we've started our dialogue with the Department of Health on this parcel. Our goal tonight is to solicit some input from the planning board on this particular application to help us navigate our design plans that we're hoping to submit at the end of this month, and kind of open it up for dialogue.
Relative to another pending proposal, the sports dome right across the street, and the limiting of the access points, have you thought about having one that cuts out to the name of the road escapes me
Rothel.
right now, that will have a light?
Rothel Drive.
Yes.
We have not considered.
Across the bank branch?
Um,
Yeah, it's a bank.
There's a bank
There's a
branch.
bank in between.
Right, but I meant, like, with an easement that, because again, it looks like.
So to
if there
connect
will
the
be
two
paved
parking lots in
right
the
there,
back?
that one little slot, so that there would be, you know, so that all the people in there could get out, have a light. Just an idea.
It's certainly an option.
Just to say there's no light there right now.
Right.
You know, our intent in the rear of the property here was to locate the refuse container behind the building so that it wouldn't be visible. We're also limited with our space in that particular location because of the septic.
Your neighbor to the east, towards the bottom of the map, is that? Okay. So are you providing any walkway or anything to get there? I mean, presumably you might have employees or what have you that want to walk.
I think that's a good idea. We haven't considered it in this layout. We could certainly do that along maybe kind of within the landscape area that we're trying to create in the front of the
Right.
site.
You just have some sort of connection or something.
You know, we also anticipate, based upon the flagging of the wetlands, that there are going to be some impacts based upon the town's aquatic resource law as well. The fact that there's a setback associated with the wetlands, and there has been kind of some wetlands.
Do you have a sense of where the wetlands are? Because it's pretty flat there.
Yeah, well, we've got when we submitted this, we had given you kind of an approximation based upon a field visit. But what we found out after the snow melted, there is a sump pump that discharges onto this property and a drainage pipe that discharges both from the neighboring property to the east. It's eroded out a channel along the entire area, which allows for the wetland species to develop there over time. So by pushing the parking area in that location, we are encroaching upon the wetlands.
Michelle, have we had a chance to take a look at the parking? It sounds like it's primarily medical use, so I know the parking is usually pretty intensive for that
It's
use.
usually one space for every 150 square feet. So I believe you said there's 12,000 square feet.
Correct.
So it's about 80, they said 84 spaces you're providing?
Yes.
So they're right on.
Okay. And can you just, and I apologize, I'm not close enough. It looks like you have a drop-off site? Is that what the little loop of pavement is?
In the front of the building, we have a drop-off site area as
Okay.
well.
And then-
For patients that are going to drop off.
And then where would your handicap spots be?
Handicap parking is to the north of the building.
Okay,
Right adjacent to the sidewalk that takes in.
okay.
We also have on this side of the building in the rear, is dedicated doctor parking. We have a separate entrance into the building for their offices.
Okay.
And how many doctors?
It's going to fluctuate, but the maximum would be somewhere between 4 and 5, is what they're contemplating.
At any given day, you mean?
And any given day, it could be less than that, though.
Okay. Is
And
it,
how many appointments a day? Sorry.
The appointments during the course of the week vary based on rehab and medical doctors, but they fluctuate from 108 to 173. And the worst day is Thursday, because that's the day in which the MRI is open until 7 p.m. in the evening.
So are you parked just to meet, you came up with this 84 spaces to meet code. Do you have an idea of how many spaces you would typically require?
We do. We've gotten that broken down by hour.
Okay.
Because of the nature of the business, there's only so many appointments they take per hour. I have that broken down. The maximum amount of patients that they have during any course of an hour would be 17.
and is that including both doctors and for rehab or physical therapy or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think your maximum parking would be at any given time?
At any given time, they would have up to 25 employees. So if they have up to 17 patients and 17 potentially coming afterwards, you may have the 34 plus 25.
They need the 80.
Okay. So you're pretty close.
Yeah, we're,
I was looking for a way to reduce that.
No, I'm with you, Jason.
no, we're probably within that
Oh, they're right there.
range. I mean, some of them,
There's going to be overlap.
yeah, there's a little bit of flexibility for overlap. We'll probably have about a 10 space flexibility there.
But it's not,
Anything excessive,
it's not excessive enough for us to say we might land bank some of it and pull you away from some of the surrounding area. You're too
no,
tight.
we've done a similar analysis within the town of Poughkeepsie at their facility, and we're operating within, and that's on a 204 space, we're operating within 5 spaces of that, so their logic for
So you know
patients
what
to
you
parking
have.
is working.
It's almost like a formula.
So knowing that, just talk to us a little bit, having come through the winter we just came through, where will you put your snow removal and things like that? And what's your,
The intent of the snow removal is, we've got a flat area here
okay,
where we would store snow, and we're also trying to look at maybe doing some stormwater management over here, where we push some snow as well.
and that's paved right now, and are you returning that to pervious?
No, the entire site is impervious, and we're going to change it to this area.
To a,
We're looking at a net probably, because we're pushing the site back, and we're actually providing parking spaces that meet the size requirements of the town code, we're probably looking at a net increase right now somewhere between 3,800 and 4,500 square feet of impervious.
and then just, if you don't mind, point out where you're doing some of the, you said you were gonna do some landscaping.
We're going to landscape this entire front area on
Okay.
the site right now. This area over here, which is not landscaped. As I said, the town requirement for 50-foot setback, we're somewhere between 20 and 25 right now, fluctuating for what we're providing. But it's an improvement over what's existing. In the front of the building, we would have 50 feet of landscaping. It's just along that parking aisle where we're having 20 feet, and we can't push it back anymore because we're already encroaching in some of the wetland.
So the wetland is to the rear of the property as well?
Yeah, and we've got the wetland on the side here,
Mhm.
that kind of comes up and around and down here. So we're encroaching over here, and want to push this parking back.
Is the whole back?
Is the whole,
I guess just show me where the limit of your property line is, maybe it's just that I'm not
It's all the
seeing.
way back here.
So how come we're not able to be back further? Is that also all
You
wetland?
have an existing drainage channel that runs through the site here. There's a pipe that collects in the DOT runoff and the site runoff that comes through here. This is the existing septic system
Okay.
for the site here. And this is the wetland at this location. We'd
All right.
love to come back further, but
Yeah.
have some limitations in terms of the septic there.
So it's paved right now, right up to the roadway, but this is a change of use. So is this something that would require zoning approval to change the setback?
Right, because it has to get a variance from the zoning board. And under the town law, you can refer them there, and it's not self-created if you refer
Under the town law, we can refer them there?
them to the zoning board. And with the, more or less, the information to the zoning board that you're comfortable with this type of site plan, and would they consider that?
What does the thing need a variance for? I didn't pick up.
The edge of pavement for the front of the parking area should be back about 25 more feet, but they're tight against the rear yard, so they can't shift it back further. But right now, it's paved.
Yeah.
It's just that with the change of use, that
I
wouldn't
know.
be.
We set the building back 50 feet, it's just the parking, we don't have that luxury.
And basically
Yeah, I think we
conforms
should
with the
send
rest
them.
of the properties and limits that let the road.
Conforms in terms of how far
They
the
encroach into
setback
the
is.
20-foot, yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, right, that too.
It's going to look a lot better than what's there now.
Well, it's a nice use of the site. so.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's going to look a lot better than what's there now.
Do you
That's good
have
cleaning
a
up.
proposed drawing of the building, or have you
We
not
don't
gone
have a
that far?
proposed elevation. The architect was just retained.
Okay.
We will have that as part of the submittal at the end of the month, and we'll be able to show that to the board in May.
Okay. And so the little bump out of the pavement is where your refuse container is?
Yes, that's the, what's contemplated there.
Any issues with getting fire vehicles through there?
I'm sorry?
Any issue with getting emergency fire vehicles through there?
No, we've run a truck turning template, but we haven't run it with the exact template here of the town. We've used the ones that come with AutoCAD 3D, but we would get the town's fire truck.
Michelle, Joe, Brendan, anything that we should discuss or that you want to offer up before we get a submittal?
I think just, we will need to look at traffic a little bit, the circulation of the vehicles. To expand on Mike's thought a little bit, the adjoining parcel to the west, the bank property, their entrance drive is basically on the property line. I mean, if there was ever an opportunity to explore having a common drive, that might be it, because there's already an existing driveway right at the property line. And then the other, just a thought about, that potentially improving the access management. The other thing to look at is the proposed driveway is pushed all the way to the east of the lot. There's a driveway that goes into the pizza place, right? Mm-hmm. The separation of those two driveways, they should, you should look at, I don't know what it is exactly, but you should look to make sure that it conforms to, at least a reasonable standard or guideline, because, generally you're looking at, somewhere definitely greater than 150 feet, probably 150 to 200 feet to have them spaced.
It's
It's going to be close.
Yeah, I think we're probably greater than that.
Okay. I just didn't know from that plan, but just something to bring up, so, if when you start to lay it out permanently, that you take that into consideration.
Yeah, what we're trying to do there is, because the existing queue lane is there, we would like to expand upon that in the event that they determine we need 6 cars for a queue. I guess one of the questions I may have for the board is, you've kind of had this whole traffic corridor here in play right now. And I understand you're meeting with the DOT next week. I heard that comment. Is there any way in which, the client would like to, since this corridor is already studied, we'd like to utilize the town consultant for this. Is there any way that we could kickstart this where, instead of waiting until the end of the month, we, put money in escrow to get this traffic study started as part of what you're doing in this whole corridor area right now? We'd rather sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Maybe attend the meeting?
I don't know if we need attendance at the meeting, but, how do we?
Yeah, no, I think that process has somewhat started. Chris has provided some information to my office that we were evaluating to look at what needs to get done for the traffic to be able to sort of.
The permission of
But the short answer is yes, we can reuse some of the information that we have right now.
Okay.
Because, we need to have a consistent record across all of these.
Correct. I just don't want to have to wait another, we come along in another month from now and give you some information, now you go back to DOT for this. It's give you everything we've got right now and move that process
Yeah,
along.
and I think the intention at the meeting on the 21st is to certainly share what we know about the proposed development along this corridor. So it's not, this isn't going to be a hidden thing.
Okay.
During the meeting. Good. Michelle, any other, or Joe, any other comments we should review before we?
Our letter mentions that they're going to need to SWIP for this. They have more than an acre disturbance and slightly more impervious cover, so we'll be looking at the details on stormwater. I think Chris is trying to set up a meeting with our office too, probably to talk about that and our review letter. But is the application now a full application, or are they still setting up those fees, or?
Yeah, well, that's the next question.
We need to make sure that you do that before the next, before your time in front of us.
All right. Yeah, and we mentioned too the possible driveway over to the adjacent property, that could be looked at. Otherwise, I think it's a fairly good plan.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Any other questions for us?
Oh, good. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Lori,
Thank you.
one more other thing I just wanted to mention, I just looked at my last
sorry.
comment, but even as part of the John Jay gas station review from the DOT, they did make a suggestion of, looking at sidewalk connectivity along the frontage on 52. So if pizzeria
Okay.
and the plaza that's down the street, obviously it's got to be built in segments, but I think you were going to look into that, right?
Yeah, we can,
Although John Jay, I guess, has stopped using the soccer complexes for auxiliary parking. Right? Kids no longer, or do they still? use it?
I don't know. They still cross the road, though.
They certainly still walk down the road.
Yeah.
It's still been in use as a couple of years ago.
all righty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Hopewell Square proposed daycare on Route 376.
Good evening. Paul Gigliotti. We're here for an amended site plan to 109 Route 376, Hopewell Square, for a daycare on the lower level. Just to bring you up to speed on the project, there was a major renovation to the exterior and interior of the building. We do have Board of Health approval to hook up to the town sewer, and also the existing water to become a public water system. We've been before the ARB. We do have approval for them as well. You'll see this site plan here is just a little different from the one I submitted, because I did speak with the town engineer just a few days back, and he had a couple of recommendations, and based on some of his recommendations, we were able just to switch a couple things around, so I figured I'd just show you some of the differences of what we submitted.
Okay.
Removing the playground from the back area. Now, to be right close to the building here, you have the smaller playground area, which is right here for the little kids. And then over here, the 3 and 4-year-olds, you have this little bit bigger playground area, which is right off the building, which will be, fenced in with the gates right as they come out. And that back area now is also going to be used as like a safety area, I guess, if practicing fire drills or going out, it's going to be just graded off, a nice grass area, so I can go to the rear of the parking area, which is, a far enough distance away from the building. We did lose a couple of parking spots, but I was able to just add them to the back corner there, as you can see. We'll have to just add a little extra pavement on the one side there to incorporate those in there. Yes.
Will buses come on this site?
Yes.
Okay.
We did do a turning radius, as you can see, using the 2011, the Green Book. That's about 36 foot, that's your actual normal yellow school bus, the bigger one, and they can make the turning radiuses all one way around and back up the building.
Okay, because those roads or lanes are rather, tight. So you would actually have, where would they drop kids off?
Right here, as you see here, this is going to be the actual, what you come to see down here. This is the middle front door, which is right here. So the buses will come in. It's a one-way down around the back.
Right.
This would be your drop-off zone pretty much right here. So you come right into the front door, the kids.
Okay.
And the buses will, leave, come out this way and come out.
And you've done the turning radiuses and everything?
Yes, as you can see on the plan, it all fits
Sorry,
actually
I can't see it from here, but-
quite well.
And just make sure, because you made some sheets, make sure we get copies of the.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's fine. I got you.
They just, we just,
Right on that
this is
little
a smaller
curve.
playground area that's fenced in with the gate.
Oh,
The smaller
all right.
kids,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, okay.
bigger. The bigger the kids will come out.
Okay.
So they don't have to come to the back.
I think that's better that they're not walking across traffic. That seems
I
to make
agree.
sense.
I agree. And the bus has plenty of turning radius to get around. It's all one ways now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. In terms of parking, Michelle, I think when we originally looked at this, we might have been short some spaces.
Well, actually, I wasn't sure what the capacity of the daycare center and the number of staff that you're
We
gonna
were
have.
required to have 39 spots. We actually come up with 43, but that's including 2 handicaps. So we have 41 regular and 2 handicap.
And how many staff will you have, did you say?
I believe there was anywhere from 50 to 55 children.
Okay.
And the staff, I think, based on state rules, don't quote me on it, I think it's like 7 or 8 employees.
Can we get firm numbers from you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's offices above?
Correct.
And how many offices and what are the?
Right now, there's 1 office there already, and there's a vacant space on the other half, and it's either going to be 1 or 2 offices, but I have enough parking spots to handle 2 more suites if we had to.
Okay, so there's 1 suite currently, and there
Yes.
there could be up to 3 suites total?
Total, yes.
Okay.
And I would assume where you described the bus would circulate and
Yes.
drop off, you would have parents also dropping children off the same way, or do you expect them to park and walk in?
Probably they would park mainly and walk the kids in.
Okay. Okay, so you don't think you'll have queuing issues or anything like that with cars waiting to drop off or what have you?
No, because you see how the traffic pattern flows with the bus will park here. They can still flow down to the other parking spots
Okay.
in the second aisle there. They park and walk the kids up if they'd like.
Okay. Do you think you have enough parking for the offices up top, or do you expect some of the office parking to also need to be in the back?
No, I think actually the upper level, I believe I have, 16 spots up there, which I think is pretty accurate to what they need for all 3 suites.
Okay, and will the folks for the offices on top, will they enter through the back of the building, or will they have to walk around? I'm just not familiar
No,
with
no,
the
no.
other
This,
side.
you see, this is the upper level.
Right.
Right here, so those are possible 3 doors right there, for possible 3 suites. No, they're on the upper levels. They don't have to
So
go
there's
around the
no
back.
stairs or anything from the back? There's no interior access to get
No.
upstairs or
No,
anything?
totally separate.
Do you have any flooding in the back?
No, not whatsoever.
There is a
The-
wetland.
Yeah, the wetlands way, there is a floodplain area in the back. It's actually quite a large floodplain. It goes all the way up and down 376 in that area. But the way the existing layout of this land is with the blacktop area, that is quite higher than what's there.
It's above the BFE?
Yes.
The whole thing, or just the paved area?
No, well, you see, there is a floodplain, this is what the floodplain line shows.
Okay.
It's it comes out in here, and it kind of comes up like this, and then it kind of moves up like this.
Okay.
And that existing corner of that parking lot. But,
Okay.
you know, it's like I said, you go out there, you see, you're quite higher than, whenever, if you have flooding there, you'd have major problems all over.
Okay. And I'm just looking, your elevation doesn't show landscaping, but it looks like you may have landscaping
Yeah,
in front?
we
So
do,
just-
yeah.
Okay.
You just have these trees here, in the front here. Just like small lots, for example. Get a tree, leave a tree there.
Okay.
And the back, these little cut lines there, small little bushes there.
And how about the sign? Are you have the same?
The sign is
Sign
the existing
location?
sign that's out there already. They just redid it.
Okay.
What are the planned uses of the 3 suites that are on the first floor?
There's an attorney's office up there now that's there permanently. And, you know, it's office space upstairs. It's all office, you know, professional.
Okay. But 2 of those are empty now, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Questions or comments from board members? Michelle, anything else we should go over?
No, most of my comments were related to circulation, which you addressed as a result of changing the planner.
Mhm.
Okay. So we just need to also confirm, you need to give us your staffing and all of that for a number of children so we can confirm
Yeah.
parking for the downstairs.
Absolutely.
Joe, anything else from?
We also had a comment about the floodplain, but I think Paul's clear with where it is.
Yeah.
Just try to show it a little more distinct. And
Yeah.
then put a note on as to, it's the most recent
That's the May,
floodplain.
was it
and-
2nd, 2012, I
Yeah,
believe it's on there.
right. And there were some retaining walls. You had details for those. I wasn't sure. A lot of them seem like they're probably landscape walls, not really tall enough to warrant calculations, but if there are that are any more than 5
There's
or 4
only
feet.
one little section that is, I think it's like about 7 foot long, that's going to be, I think, around like 6.5, 7 feet. And I do have calculations for that. The rest of the walls are going to be 4 foot or lower.
I think that's something you can handle with the building department too, when that comes around. The rest of it was, related to clarification and some circulation, but it sounds like you're addressing those. And you've got health department approval for water and sewer.
Correct.
Brendan, I know there's arrows on the plan right now, but it's not actually showing the circulation, so I don't know if we have that as another layer or whether we need that.
Yeah, I think in my comment letter, he did show the circulation for the bus. We'll need it for the fire apparatus too. And I can't see the detail of that plan, but the refuse area, is it in the back?
Yeah, it's going to be in this back corner here.
Okay. Just a couple of things. One, it's obscured by a parking space, so that's something that might need to be considered. And then, I think there's enough room to pull in and then back into there, so I don't think that's an issue. But they should be shown, and I would recommend showing them on another plan. I know it's preliminary now, and then other plans you've done that. Just put those on a separate plan, because they get confused with the elements on the site plan. Because I don't think you're intending to install those arrows, right? They're actually just showing flow patterns.
Pretty much.
But leading to that, there does need to be some signing in terms of the one-way circulation and do not enter on the other side.
There is actually a couple existing one-way signs here already. And, see how they look, if they're replaced them with a little newer, if not,
And then I thought, even a do not enter on the other side.
coming in down the side, you're saying.
Because the front lot, that would be intended to be, you would pull in and pull out without going around the building, right?
Correct.
You would be able, there's enough room there. One of the things I think one of my comments was to even, if you could get the aisles and the width of the travel path. Yeah, it's just so you could see that, so just make sure that it's just, scaling is always a little troublesome to me. The other thing with I understand the concept of the bus drop-off, right by the door. Unfortunately, being cursed with 2 kids in daycare myself, I know how it works. So it's, it's pretty chaotic in the morning and in the afternoon pickups. And if I understand, these are not school-age children for the most part, but there might be like a before-school and after-school program.
Correct.
For younger kids. So it kind of happens at the same time. The bus is coming in to pick up the kids in the morning while all the other parents are bringing their kids to drop them off, and then the reverse in the afternoon. I don't know if there is a way, but if there was any way to put that bus somewhere where it didn't have to interfere with all the other people that are coming in and out. And I don't know if it could be on the side of the building, because, if you park the bus there, even if it only takes, if the kids have to get on or off, it could take 5 minutes or more to, disembark from the bus. It's going to pretty much clog that entire area up. And granted, there is room in the back for people to park, but then they're going to have to be able, they're going to have to walk across the path of the bus with their children, or not holding their children's hand or something. So it just creates a little bit of a, I would think, a concern for for the way it would function. Maybe even on the south side of the building. I don't know if there's any way to have a little pull off where the bus could pull off, and then a sidewalk that would connect into where the entrance would be. Food for thought, because I just think, I know at the daycare that I go to, the bus stops along a sidewalk line directly into the building. The sidewalk then connects to where all the parking spaces are. It's got some separation, because it really is, they're the other children, like you were asking, there's no drop-offs. They're 4 years old, so parents need to bring them, and younger, so parents are bringing them into the building. So it's just a lot of activity from that regard. The parking, I just wonder about the parking calculation, of whether that could be flexed a little bit in terms, I think even circulation and access to that back parking could be a lot better if you could lose a couple of spots.
Well, I think we just need the confirmation of staffing
Yeah.
numbers. And
I think what I have, I'm pretty almost positive what I have there is what I need, according to the thing, but we could look at it.
Yeah, we may be able to get rid of a couple of spaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty much my stuff
If you keep the
there.
parking lot one way, you may also be able to angle some of those spaces, and that would give you a little bit extra breathing room or circulation possibly as well.
Okay, good look at that.
Just a thought.
Yeah, just thought with people pulling in, like, once the aisle adjacent to the building, which is only a few spots anyway, because
Yeah.
of the relocation.
Yeah.
I mean, if those get filled up right away, and one's a handicap space, and I can tell you at my daycare, everyone uses the handicap space. But in order to go into the back parking lot and have to maneuver your car to pull into one of those spots, you know, that's probably not so easy. People are going to want to just pull in the front way. So, I don't even know, maybe that middle row of parking might be better suited if the entrance to that parking was the opposite way. I mean, if you follow what I'm saying, I don't know.
So you're saying you want this middle entrance?
Instead of having to go around into the back lot and pull into a spot, you'd be better off coming in and pulling into that spot, and then having to back out and pull, and then, and
So you're just looking at my solid line, you're saying, onto the other side, so they pull in instead of looping around and pull out, you're saying?
right.
Okay, I can look at that.
I mean, that just,
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it's less maneuvering that way.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
You know,
I'm
you
sorry, but I
pull
wasn't
in, pull right
following.
into
I
a
got
spot,
you.
take your child in,
Yeah.
come back out, and then back out, 'cause,
That also, again, I don't know if it'll work or not, but maybe with the angled spots too, and then it keeps everybody
yeah,
going in the same direction.
going the right way,
a little
and
more.
actually,
Yeah.
right, there might be some value to that, and
Okay.
eats up a little less room, too.
Okay. So these you had revised just a little bit. You have a few things you need to follow up on with us, so we'll see you back one more time for discussion. Just make sure you've got everything set up. Special permit terms, we have to finish the parking calculation right before we can.
There's two special permits. One's for the daycare, and the second one would be if you're going to modify the parking. And that requires a public hearing.
Okay. But I still think we need to have one more discussion
No,
before
I know,
we
I'm
would
just
do
pointing
so
out
we
that
have
you're
the
going to need...
information to actually know whether we need to.
Because the site plan, even if you deem the modifications minor,
Agreed,
the special permit's still going to trigger a public hearing.
agreed. But I don't think we can do that until we have the
Mhm.
information for the parking calculation. Anything else we need to review before we? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Stuart Scott, 6 lots on Burt's Path.
Good evening, Christian Moore from Podgy Martin Del Bene, and before the board tonight, we show you the second phase of the Stuart Scott subdivision located at the intersection of Warren Farm Road and East Hook Road. And this application seeks the approval to subdivide 2 existing lots of record into a total of 6 residential building lots. At the time of the original approval, back in 1990, 23 lots were created from the original parcel, with lots 5 and 12 remaining oversized due to site conditions. I've indicated here in pink, 5 to the south, 12 to the north, and all the remaining lots.
When you say left large due to site conditions, what were the site conditions?
There were issues with groundwater and getting proper percolation in the soils for the installation of the sewage disposal system.
So wetlands or?
Well, there are wetlands on the site that have been identified since the approval.
Okay.
And we have actually made applications to Army Corps of Engineers regarding.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, just pull the microphone towards you because it's,
Or break it.
thank you. So you said you made application to Army Corps?
Yes, we made applications to the Army Corps of Engineers for the wetland relocation. The most recent plan that we've submitted to them deviates from this slightly in that the relocation area that we are adding on lot 12D to the north has been shifted and made contiguous with the relocation area on Lot 5B. They asked us to do that because they felt that one large wetland complex is going to probably take and hold better than two separate ones. And also, the natural line of drainage is down to the lowest part on Lot 5B to the southwest.
Okay. So these used to be contiguous and they're separated now, or?
There were just 4 separate wetlands that were identified by the Army Corps. I believe Michelle Robbins also went out and worked with the Army Corps to have a firm delineation of them. There were no delineation of the wetlands at the time of the original approval, starting in the mid-'80s.
Okay, probably wasn't necessarily a big requirement then.
The wetland consultant from AKRF, it was their opinion that they were town regulated because he believed that they were connected in some way, and I believe that the Army Corps agreed with that because and took jurisdiction of them because they did not believe that they were actually isolated, and how they were historically were not positive, but there was certainly a large wetland complex across the street. Now there's a road, and then there's been filling and all sorts of disturbance in the actual site since then. So it's sort of hard to know exactly what transpired there, but certainly I think it was my wetland consultant's opinion that there was definitely interconnectedness between those wetlands at some point, and I believe that the Army Corps agreed with that, which is why they took jurisdiction over them. Having said that, I haven't seen the new plan, so I don't know exactly if this still is the same, but right now they're still showing disturbance to wetland A, and then as well as because of the proposed wetland relocation in the previous plan, there was also disturbance to wetlands D and C, and I'm not sure if that's still the case with the current plan for the proposed homes.
There will be no disturbance to wetland D on Lot 12D because we're not doing anything next to it. The only thing we're putting in is a post and rail fence at the direction of Army Corps, just provide a physical barrier.
So you've gotten rid of the disturbance to wetland D, and now it's just to A and C at this point?
Correct. There was no real disturbance to wetland D. We were going to attach the disturbance of wetland A to D.
Okay.
And the Corps said, well, we like it better if you consolidate everything to one large wetland complex. It's going to have a better chance to take root and establish itself long-term.
Okay. So, but it is my wetland consultant's opinion that they're still town-regulated wetlands, so that the town would still need to issue permits for the disturbance.
As well as Army Corps.
Correct.
Okay. So the proposal to consolidate the disturbance or to offset the disturbance by increasing one of the existing areas, is that what you're saying?
Well, what we're doing is we're taking all the area of disturbance and we're recreating it next to an existing wetland. The total net balance before and after, you're still going to have the exact same number of square feet of wetlands before as opposed to after. So there's no net reduction in the square footage of wetlands on the property as a whole.
So instead of two separate small wetlands, you're doing one large one, which I think, I mean, I would have to speak with my wetland scientists, but I believe that actually does make a certain amount of sense in my mind, especially if you went out and saw the size of the wetlands that we're talking about and the separation and all the disturbance that's going to happen around them.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, not close enough to the mic. But the lowest point on the property is down here, the intersection of East Hook and Warren Farm. And the general line of drainage goes from the upper reach here down across. Existing drainage piping goes across the street and over to a discharge here, goes underneath Warren Farm Road, and into an open ditch that continues west.
So do we have confidence that what you do there actually will take root if it's draining across the street, or?
Well, it's not exactly going to drain across the street part. Any rainfall that falls into it, it goes up and overflows into the catch basins and structures that are near it.
Okay, I thought you said the property was draining into a pipe that was going to a ditch across the street.
Its general line of drainage does follow that. And
Okay.
along with all the roadway piping for Burt's Path, which is the road that was constructed at the time this lot, or this subdivision happened, and all drains and all discharges into the large culvert. I believe there's a 36-inch.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. So if you have drainage that's going off the property across the street, how do we increase existing wetland there? Is it specific to the way you build it up? Do you put a berm around it? I mean, how is
It's
that?
the size and or the type of nature of the soil, and just the fact that there's a very high water table there that has not changed historically in probably 22, 23 years since the original Stuart Scott received approval.
Okay. Michelle, we'll have to just make sure that we have somebody take a look at this from your shop, and if there's other things we need to do as part of our permit, I would want to understand what the recommendation is for that.
There are additional things that are going to be put in. A little over 78 plantings of various species.
We looked at like what was done, what's already done, in terms of,
Historically?
yeah, how things changed from the original.
Well, we were able, my office was able to get a few historic aerials showing, over, it was probably over 10 or 15 years. And it's clear that there was filling over time. You can see it very clearly on in the aerial photographs. When exactly the filling occurred in relation to when the town put in their wetland code is not so clear, because we don't know exactly, and I also don't know exactly what the boundaries of the wetland were originally. Certainly there was filling, certainly there were wetlands out there over time. Whether or not any of the fill went in any of the wetlands when they were town-regulated wetlands is unclear.
Care to comment on that? I mean, was there any fill being done?
I believe the applicant has brought in fill from time to time. I'm not exactly sure what type of plan he was following, but I believe that the town is aware of it, and I believe he's in discussions with the town on how to remedy that.
How to remedy that? What does
As
that
you
mean?
said, that's not what I heard there. That I heard was.
Well, I think, but that might be the enforcement people are working with them.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Because our wetlands law came in 2006 or 2007, and so any filling that took place after that would be a violation, so that there'll be a process that they'll have to deal with as far as the penalty. We did go back and look at the original SEQA review of this project, and it did contemplate these additional lots in that. These lots were not divided, as he said, because there was some drainage and wet issues. Of course, SEQA back then wasn't what it is now. So.
Okay. So as long as today's conditions on the lots meet whatever is required to be able to build,
They could be
then
subdivided.
they can pursue
Yes.
building. Okay. So you've said there's a high water table. Do you have the ability to put in septic here, or are you putting in?
Yes, we had a pre-application meeting with the Department of Health, and given the fact that the water table is high,
More filling.
Dutchess County Department of Health is entertaining the installation of larger mound systems instead of the standard fill system that they typically approve in Dutchess County, constructing of a clay berm. They're substantially larger than the standard fill system. Fill system shown here for Lot 5A is the original system that was approved for Lot 5. We just have to renew the approved one. And it's about the same. It'll serve as the same size house. Compared to one of these other systems, you can see how much larger it is. They insist on a much larger basal area of general fill. And they require certain separation from wells, from other septics, and from the wetlands, which is why we've laid them out, and that's why we have the wetland disturbance that we currently have.
So you're proposing 6 lots altogether?
6 lots created from 2.
Okay, and the total acreage, and then do you meet the minimum acreage requirements for each one?
Yes.
total acreage and just tell me the total acreage of the property and walk me through.
Total acreage of the property.
5A, we have 1 acre, 5B, 4.2, and we have 1.3, 1.2, 2, and 2.4. And we need 1 acre minimum for every lot. We are limited.
So why don't you look at your plan underneath, should tell you the total acreage. The old plan. Yeah.
This is the old one from 1990.
Yeah, I know. That's going to tell us the total acreage, won't it?
This is the actual septic plan, it's not the original, but that has all the bulk regs on it.
Lori, one other thing as far as the history of filling on the site. Another thing the town could look at is there has been a longer period of time when the excavation and fill permit was a requirement as well. So even if the wetlands law doesn't kick in, it might be something the town could look at under that code. But then again, it would be hard to prove because you'd have to look over aerial photos and get quantities of fill, and then it's by number of lots per year, and
Right.
so,
But there was 2 lots,
right,
so, right?
2 lots, right, currently.
So it would be $375 per year for 2 lots.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I think it goes by existing lot, not contemplated lots or not unapproved. I'm not
Right.
even sure the plan, I know that they said there was further development expected, but there wasn't a plan for it. They weren't subdivided.
Right. And then the excavation and fill permit excludes septic, and it would depend on where the fill landed, if it was in a planned septic area or not. So.
In general, we don't like to see wetlands filled in. And this site, when you look at it, it just looks like there's been significant fill there. With vegetation and things surrounding it, again, based on what our professionals have seen out there, what any of us can see when we drive by it. It just does seem to be very wet. And, Tom, as far as looking at that, I mean, is this something that, I don't think it's the planning board's purview necessarily to look at fill over time. I think we're looking at a point in
No,
time.
I think that would be an enforcement.
Okay.
And certainly, we make sure you have a report on that, so you know what's being addressed.
All right. Is that something we could just maybe ask Pam, contact the building department, just let them know we're seeing something within this application? It seems like there's been an extensive fill for 2 lots over time. And I understand the exclusions for septic and things like that, so clearly we'd have to figure that out. But- So if you want to just walk us through the layout then of where you have houses and orientation and things like that, because you've got kind of a lot of road systems here. Just show us how things are going to be, where they're going to be facing, what you're proposing.
5A and 5B, as well as 12A, B, and C, all front off Burke's Path through the
Okay.
center. Only 12B will gain his access off the Warren Farm Road. Septic systems are shown for mounds, except for the system on lot 12A, which is the own system. We are requiring fill, and that was part of the original approval. All of the lots in the subdivision have been built out. These are the ones who never.
And the way the houses are laid out, they're in line with the other houses? So you don't have something way up close or way far away, so the other houses look out of place? We just want to make sure what you're proposing is going to be in line with the rest of the neighborhood.
Just take a look at the aerials and they make sure very really the place of the houses depends upon the placement of the septic system. Because the systems are so large
I'm sorry, on that one, can you just show us where the two wetlands are today and where they'll be joined?
There's a total of 4 wetlands on the property. There's wetland A, and B, which is a small pocket over here, C, and the larger one, D. We're proposing to fill in and remove the majority of wetland A. And just this darker shaded portion of wetland C. And the reason we have to do that is to maintain our proper horizontal separation of the proposed septics to the wetlands, which is seen as a source of surface water. And the most recent plan we submitted to Army Corps, both of these areas that are disturbed are going to be recreated and made contiguous with wetland C coming down into this low area.
Thank you.
You said you're removing most of, and I'm sorry, I can't, was it wetland A that you're removing most of? The one at the top?
This plan is shows most of the Army Corps. They said, why leave a small pocket there, remove it all.
Removing all of it, okay. I thought you said most of it, that's why I was a little bit concerned we would leave some tiny.
That's actually been changed. I think we're probably about 95% of the way to getting our technical approval with the Army Corps. There's just some administrative things we need to work out with them.
Okay, I want to make sure you're also working with the town on that because you are going to need both permits. You're going to need one from the town.
We
as
understand
well.
that.
I should say with us on that. All right, other questions from board members? Or anything else we need to go over, Michelle? Or go over?
Just update your National Heritage Program letter, because you're probably going to come up with Indiana bat and possibly turtles, and we just need to...
Yeah, that's going to be next, and we have Ecological Solutions working on that, and he's going to put his stuff together and submit to National Heritage, and we're working on getting the state wetlands that are really on the south side of East Hook Road delineated to find out where the adjacent area.
Yeah, to make sure there's no buffer on your side.
Correct.
Yeah.
One other thing that the Army Corps brought up, and I might as well open it up here, is they're concerned about the long-term protection of the wetlands. Now, they say you can do this in one of two ways. You can make a conservation easement and draw a line around the wetland and protect it that way, or simply make a restrictive covenant in a deed. Corps doesn't express a preference one way or the other. But if it's something that's going to be brought to the planning board, I'd like to just open that up now and find out what the town's position would be.
Well, we're definitely going to have you have some sort of delineation of the wetlands, whether it's by rocks or fencing or what have you, that will happen. But I think we do usually have sometimes there's deed covenants depending on what's expected, especially with, Tom, I'm thinking this is going to be a new wetland that may need some sort of conditioning or...
Well, that's the thing. It depends upon whether it's going to require some supervision for a while, until it matures or gets...
So maybe you
So
can
we'll have to
provide
take
us
a
with
look
some
at it.
additional information on exactly what's going on there.
Okay.
And then we'll talk through with you what the
As far as physical delineation, the Corps has asked that we show a post and rail fence along any line where the homeowner, if they're not aware that there is a wetland that they might mow into or put up a trailer or a shed as a physical marker.
Yeah, so the town's requirement may be more restrictive than that, so you're going to want to make sure you understand what's required for the town as well.
Of course, our client would prefer not to have a full easement or restrictive covenant in the deed. It's probably enough, along with the physical delineation.
Again, I think it's really going to depend what will be required to try to actually reclaim wetland where you're proposing. I'm not familiar enough with what that would mean or what would be required there of a homeowner to know whether or not it would be appropriate to have that kind of covenant or not. So let's find out more from you, and then we'll have that discussion the next time we see these.
Yeah, we just resubmitted to Army Corps, I believe, just yesterday. And when we get the response back, and then we just didn't want to bring kind of a half and half approval, not to
bog everybody down with additional, because we have to get a permit from Army Corps anyway, so we have to make them happy.
Anything else that we should review? So I think we need to do a few things on our end. We'll refer this over just to double check what the fill is out there and make sure that it makes sense. And then you have a few things you need to give to us regarding what you're proposing as far as the reclamation. We can look at that.
Yes.
I don't know if reclamation is the right word, but whatever the right word is for the new area you're proposing.
It's like a wetland restoration mitigation plan.
Okay. And then are there any, are you missing any required setbacks or anything like that?
No, we have all the
So far,
setbacks.
you have building envelopes that are all within the requirements of the code? So I know you said your septics are a little bit unusually sized, so.
All the building envelopes are listed for the setbacks for this proposed structure.
Okay. All right. Do you have other questions for us?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda was the Hopewell Sports Dome Ventures on Route 52, and I think this was just a follow-up agenda item. We wanted to make sure that the board was submitting any comments we wanted to provide back to the town board. So I know I had a few that I wrote to Pam at a very late hour today. I apologize, Pam. And we just wanted to make sure that if there's any questions or comments that the board wants to add to those. I think, Michelle, were you going to assist us in compiling that information? And just making sure that it gets to the town board.
Good evening again, Steve Feinstein for the applicant. Steve Trinkus, our chief engineer, is here this evening. He was unable to be with us last time. And Russell Hernandez, one of the principals, and general contractor's also here. And obviously, we're ready to the extent there are questions, answer them and follow up as necessary.
Okay. I think primarily, I know that I had referred a few comments over, or prepared a few comments to send over to the town. It has to do with things along the lines of, since the town is the lead agency, the things we want to make sure that they're covering within their review and their public hearings and things like that.
Sure.
I think probably the primary thing would be just knowing that there may be some limited time here for the balloon test. We want to make sure that the planning board and the town board are, aware of when that's happening. I know personally I'd probably like to go out and see what that's going to look like and
Absolutely.
be able to drive around a little bit. So I don't know if that's scheduled already or if that needs to be scheduled, but that's something we would be interested in knowing more about.
I don't think a hard date was scheduled. I think we're waiting to make sure that everybody was on the same page for scheduling, but we're ready to schedule it as soon as everybody's able to be there for that.
Okay. If you'd like, I don't mind summarizing the comments that I had put together to pass along, and then if other board members have other questions as we go, that's fine too.
That would be wonderful.
They're not necessarily in any priority order, but I'm happy to just run through them.
Sure.
The balloon test we already talked about. One of the things that I noted was that your interior space, you have significant retail and restaurant space, and I recognize that the intention is for it to be used as part of sporting events and things like that, but I also wanted to make sure that we felt that we were looking at adequate parking and things like that in the event that that became a different type of destination or for a different purpose. So I recognize that's not the intent right now, but just to know whether we have appropriate parking, because the restaurant space and things like the other retail uses could incur additional parking beyond just what the sports would be. And then I also had a question with regard, and maybe you can answer it, with regard to whether or not any other of the domes that are in the area, or I think you said there may be a few that are planned, have this similar type of retail space interior to it. So I just wondered whether we had any kind of comparison as to how that space, if it has been used in the past, whether it truly does stay within the boundaries of being used during a sports type session, or whether it ever has ancillary uses that kind of are outside of the normal operation of hours. Again, these aren't necessarily in any particular order. I did want to know, there were a couple references when you were before us last time that there were several other locations. We know of a couple very close to us here within, maybe just an hour or so's travel, but I also thought there might be some in process or some proposed additional sites. So I wondered whether we had any knowledge of other sites that might be similar to this in a similar location that could be competition to this site, and also whether or not we have information from those other sites within your existing proposal. I believe we do, but again, I just wanted to make sure whether we have sufficient information to extrapolate the parking needs. So again, just, this is kind of a new thing for us, so just getting a kind of an understanding from other area projects. Does anybody, let me just pause there, does anybody have anything to add to any of those points or anything different? Okay. The other comment I made, we knew you were meeting with the rec commission, and because this is now a very baseball kind of centric proposal, I wanted to make sure that that seemed fitting to the rec commission, or if we knew that there were other uses that we knew that this town or surrounding area or school districts might have, if we were comfortable that we understood how the fields might change and what the needs of the town or the schools might be with regard to that, and time of year and that sort of thing. Because I know you said that while you can change over the fields, it's not like you flip a switch and everything shifts around. It does take some effort to do that. So I just wanted to understand that a little better. Also, I think just understanding, and we, again, not something necessarily the purview of the planning board, but something that I wanted to offer as comment back to the town board. I think we should understand, we recognize this is a for-profit facility, but we're also hoping that some of our schools, town may be able to make use of it. So understanding what the times of usage, days, times of year, and cost to the town might be for that. I think we want to have a sense of that.
That was discussed with the rec commission in some detail.
Okay, terrific. And again, I'm not saying that's part of the planning board's purview, just a comment being offering back to them. I also had we recognize that this is a lot of off-peak use, but there are also some significant traffic events that could occur here, so we wanted to make sure we understood all of the site circulation, the realignment of Auditorium Drive, the circulation back out towards Lime Kiln onto 84, and just that we kind of understand what the traffic impact is going to be. If you were here earlier tonight, you've heard we've got several plans that are sort of all happening right within this small area of Route 52. So we really want to understand what the impact, especially to Route 52, is going to be, but also to some of the other roads. Mike, I stole this comment from you. For the outdoor fields, we noticed that some of them are on or near parking or very close to Route 52, so we want to make sure that there's adequate screening proposed to make sure that both pedestrians won't necessarily wander into oncoming parking areas or whatever without knowing what's happening there, and also if there's stray balls or things moving around, that sort of thing. We just want to make sure there's screening and that people know kind of where they should be traveling as far as the pedestrians and things like that. Sorry, Mike, I took that right from you. And then also making sure there's adequate sidewalks to and from the parking lots and the fields, as well as access for crossing Route 52 where appropriate. Because we do have other services across the street that may be attractive destinations for folks that are either looking for something to do while they're waiting for someone playing a game or that sort of thing. Absolutely.
Just feeding on that, one of the things that occurred to me earlier tonight, and again, the whole comprehensive travel thing, you had indicated there's going to be a walkway that goes over to John Jay that cuts through. Is there any chance of having like a road that does that too, that connect the parking lots?
Well, there's an elevation change, and when we were here through the rec board, there was a lieutenant here, I think, who was also the safety officer for the school, and he indicated he wanted it to be at least wide enough for emergency vehicles to travel between the two spaces, but not necessarily as a roadway. So I know that's something to be considered.
Because one of the things, stop and think about it, is if there was an adjoining drive, you could theoretically pull in, across from Rapelier and get off of 52 and wind up in John Jay. See where this is going?
Yeah, but that might create security issues for that.
I was going to say, it may raise more problems than it solves.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a physical impossibility, but I don't know.
One of the things that we've looked at is the potential realignment of Auditorium Drive to be opposite Lake. If that ever becomes a reality, there's the opportunity for the parking lot to connect closer to 52, not right at their site, but, for the school to connect there.
No, absolutely.
Hey, back this Steve Trinkus, for the record, the engineer. This plan actually, the original sidewalk location, we were in around the fields, and after initial meeting with the town a couple of weeks ago, it's now running from the dome straight across here to John Jay. But we do have a pretty substantial slope area between our site and John Jay, which kind of would preclude that road access. But we also have left room for the future realignment up to this point where a traffic light would be. So it's kind of set up for that. Just to kind of go back to your question about the field, along the outfield of all of the fields, the large fields have a 20-foot black chain link fence. So, that'll keep the balls in there. The smaller fields on the western side of the site have a 15-foot high, fence, so they will be protected from stray balls going off site.
And presumably the chain link would prevent pedestrians from wandering off too.
Yeah.
I hope.
There's a retaining wall on the outfield here because of the grade sloping down the field has to be 1%, so the fence will be on that. So with the exception of the sidewalk connection down, you won't have pedestrian access to
That side too close.
You'll have pedestrian access to the parking. The applicant has an easement from Brightland Solar. We have 303 spaces on the site with an agreement for 500, so we have a total of 803 spaces. The one per 500 square foot gives us 690, so we have substantially more parking available to us.
But it's not an easement, there's a shared parking agreement.
Right.
It's not an easement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer your question about the restaurant use or other things.
Yeah. The sidewalk between the two fields that you're showing, does the fence actually protect that sidewalk as well, or are people walking across between those fields potentially with?
There's no fence between the fields, but you've got batting cage, bullpen, dugout. You have little structures there, but yeah, this is open otherwise between the two fields. So, I guess if you're walking during an active game, you kind of have to keep half an eye on the batter as you're walking out there. But
So am I going to be able to see that if I'm walking behind a dugout to know that something's coming at me?
Oh, you would, because this is all open, so if you're walking out, the dugout is 20 foot wide, so not even as wide as your table up here, so you'd see it, and they're fairly low. So again, it's.
And then
it's
the
likely
fencing
access-
areas, sorry.
I'm sorry, the access would likely be between games, like if you had John Jay's baseball team coming over, and coming up there, and, you need to wait between batters, and go.
I mean, people wander, so.
We do have sidewalks from all the parking areas.
Old people, they just wander.
Should I have just said I wander or something?
Just said you wander.
We all wander. We all wander.
We have, pedestrian access within the site. We do not look at sidewalks going out to 52 where we can.
Not necessarily, I mean, we should talk about that, but I guess I was more focused on making sure that if pedestrians are moving around where these games are happening, that they're kind of aware of what's happening around them, or that they're protected from a fly ball or something like that.
Yeah. Everything, the two big ball fields, everything's going out, that way.
So, but there will be fencing between the field and the parking lot?
Yeah, there will be. This will be a
Because, I mean,
long fence
you could
there.
see somebody fouling off onto this.
Well, there's a 35-foot area between, this is the edge of the field, and there's a 35-foot area, and then another roughly 15, which is also turf, but kind of outside the foul line.
Okay.
So, kind of is a protection for that. So the field is not right up to the wall. It's offset.
But there is or isn't fencing that runs along?
There is, again, there's a retaining wall here with a fence, but it's a 4-foot high.
Yeah, it's not the 15-foot that you would have behind or the 20-footer.
But it's a lower fence, but it's also, if you look at Major League ballparks, it really is not that much in between the foul line and where the bleachers are, per se.
And you know what, when it's bleachers, that's fine, because people are presumably watching the game. My concern is if my car is sitting right there and there's, I'm not aware that there's foul balls coming and landing on roofs of cars, that's what we're not.
But we also have, the travel lane before the parking, so we have no parking right there either. It's somebody, not to say somebody can't hit it that far off, but generally it's not that far. But we'll take a look at that.
No, at Fenway, when the balls go out into the street, they're very valuable, and maybe the same thing will happen here.
just a couple more. Let's see. I made the comment because during your conversation with us, you stated that you felt that you'd be able to bring the hydrant right up and potentially through the wall, through the 10-foot wall under the dome to get into have fire flow access within the building. So I just made the comment that we discussed that and to ask whether or not the fire advisory board had additional comments or suggestions. I'm sure they will, but just to say that there may be other specific locations or something like that they feel is more appropriate than the other. Also just noted that with the restaurant being kind of interior and in the center of the dome and up on a second story, I think having that fire flow access directly available within the building is going to be really important. Obviously, nobody wants an issue or a problem, but I think knowing that you have the fire flow access there is important. Another comment regarding knowing what the everyday uses are and then what would constitute a special use and needing a special use permit, just making sure that as the town board is looking at this, we're very clear in what we delineate as the normal use that's approved and then what would constitute requiring a special permit. And then if there were any specific items that you would need to present in the event you wanted a special permit, just to make sure we're documenting that as we go through this process so that everybody kind of understands what the ground rules are as we would walk through something like this. You may have already submitted this, and again, this was just my feedback. I wasn't sure whether or not we had adequate access to utilities, including water and sewer.
We have water, actually. Chris Levine, who appeared before you earlier, submitted a letter on the water supply, and we have available water from the Shenandoah line. From a sanitary standpoint, in our meetings, Mr. Hickman and Scott Bryant, your town engineer, they'll be extending the municipal sanitary line towards this direction, so our sanitary line will be running out here for a future connection for that. We'll also have natural gas from Route 52 and underground power, et cetera, also.
Now is adequate power there?
I can include power as part of the comment. And then, Jason, I know you had, I hadn't included here, but did you want to ask about the...
I know, Dan, I know you said you have backup systems, in case power outage, something like that, but, catastrophic failure, is, how quickly can this dome come down?
Dome of this size would probably take an hour to come down.
Okay.
It would come down so slowly. If you open all the doors and left them open, probably close to an hour to take a dome down this size.
So it's not something that's going to happen in 5 minutes.
If you shut everything off and opened up the doors, the amount of air that could come out through all of the doors and all the openings would still take an hour for it to deflate to the ground.
But assuming that's every single opening that's open.
Worst case scenario.
That's worse. Yeah, I was just wondering.
Right, and you have no backup systems on, and there are 3 systems of backups here.
Yep.
So, but assuming complete catastrophic disaster, everybody's getting out of this building long before it hits the ground.
Okay. That's...
Is that something that, and forgive me, I'm assuming there's some sort of actual mathematical calculation you do to figure out how long it would take for the air to...
I'm sure there is. I'm not the one who does it, but I can tell you from personal experience, having represented the people that build these for over 20 years, that there have been over the years in different parts of the world situations where there have been complete shutdowns for various people made mistakes. The gas line for the backup system was broken. Somebody forgot to put oil in the diesel generator tank. All kinds of things. And so they know from experience, based on the size of the domes and the number of openings, how long they take to come down. We've all had the experience of being in these structures when they shut everything down and open up the doors and have you stand there as an owner and see exactly what it's like. It's part of the sales presentation. And it just goes very, very slowly. And that's a dome that's, these are domes that are smaller when they're this large and they're coming down from this distance. But I'm sure the engineering calculation could be done. But it feels like it's happening in slow motion.
Okay. So I think, Jason, what I would do is I'll add a comment for
Yeah, if you can.
the estimate of the time for the dome to collapse, and then also verification of what the backup systems consist of and what the redundancies are.
Thank you.
Just two more. We're not experienced with the nature of this building. Obviously, it's something new for us, so I wanted to make sure, you stated that there wasn't a need to remove snow from the roof, which makes sense, but I wanted to see that we have, and Joe, maybe this is more directed towards what your review will be, but a drainage plan for the runoff from the building for both rain and snow, and to ensure that pooling will not happen at the entrances. And I think that's important both for the rain, but especially during winter time. If we're having runoff, we don't want to have ice situations and things like that building up as surface ice or icicles or anything like that. Now with the 10-foot wall, you're going to have a potential that if water's running across it, I just don't want to, I want to make sure that we're comfortable that we know how the water's going to exit the site, or exit from around the building.
Quick overview. I mean, we did get comments from Joe last week, and the meeting's first thing tomorrow morning.
Right.
But around the dome is a 30-foot wide snow shelf emergency access. There are drains along the back side of the snow shelf, and the water pitches to these drains. Basically, what they did is put a low point here, 100 feet away this way, 100 feet away is a high point, so it drains. So, and all the drainage, whether it's snow melt or rainfall, will go to one of these drains. Basically, some of the water goes around this way, and then out to the detention basin. The rest of it goes around that way. The front goes this way. The snow does slide off, and they can use a backhoe to remove it. And we have snow storage areas along the landscape area here, and also in a couple larger parking islands here that they can move it and allow it to melt. So, so we're not going to have pooling. There's a constant pitch of at least 2% away from the wall of the dome out. So just like
well, and that's part of what would be the appropriate.
This wasn't in our comments, but I had thought about that whole main walkway is on the north side. It's going to be constantly in shadow during winter, so I don't know if you'd have to have a more vigorous snow removal plan in place there, or de-icing methods, or yeah.
That's a good point. I don't think the shading.
It's a mountain.
We'll have
Right.
a plan for that.
Heated sidewalk.
That's kind of
That's what they do in Vail, right?
Yeah.
How many pounds of snow can that structure handle?
That would be a question.
It's in the tons and tons of snow that can be housed on top of a building this large, but it doesn't collect because of the shape of the structure. It doesn't collect as it would on a flat roof. There's only a tiny little spot for it to collect, and when it reaches that weight, which is a tiny fraction of the weight that these things can hold, it then slides down. The friction along the side isn't enough to hold it, and it slides down. But literally, there are tons and tons. It's a little hard to think of it. When I first got into the business, and I'm thinking of these bubbles, and you can point your finger and sort of push them, and it's impossible. You can hang 1,000-pound lights and scoreboards and things from the roofs of these things, and it doesn't pull it down because of the air pressure that's there. But again, the weight is not on a flat roof. It's on this. It's a tiny.
It's really just at the ridge line.
It's like just a little ridge line. That's the word I was thinking.
Everything else simply has a rounded slope down.
What the engineering calcs usually do is they deal with snow loads calculations that are completely unrealistic for the areas in question, and it meets all those snow load calculations. And as I'd indicated, these calculations were done to deal with conditions, Alaska pipeline, Siberia, places in the Chinese wilderness where they built domes that were extraordinary. We couldn't believe that the calculations would work for them, and they did.
The other part of this is that the building is almost like a radiator, right? It's heated up. So it's also a natural radiation.
Unfortunately, the heating of the building is very costly, even with the multiple layers that this building will be, and the hot air rises to the top. And so the warmest air is sitting there right there. It is serving the purpose of help creating some snow melt so it doesn't stick at the top.
last comment that I had, and then, other board members, if you have additional comments, we have outdoor fields that may be used at night, and likewise, the hours of operation of the building itself, we're going to extend well into the evening hours and potentially open before it's light in the morning. So I wanted to make sure that we're comfortable that all of the sidewalks to and from the fields and the building are appropriately lit so that pedestrians will be able to get to and from their vehicles safely, and then also that where we have to hang higher lights for the outdoor fields, that we're using the full cutoff fixtures. And I believe you said that you would, but I want to make sure that comment goes out to the town board.
The parking lot lights are 20-foot poles with full cutoff fixtures, and the lighting plan shows the illumination. There's also bollard lights along the front walkways for that. The fields are all lit. The large fields are 7-foot poles, Musco lights, full cutoff, and they did full planimetric plan. The smaller fields are 60-foot tall poles. Again, with these multiple fixtures on the same pole, and they focus the light so the fields are bright, but you get behind the poles on the perimeter and the light disappears almost instantaneously.
Okay. Now, what about the shared parking area? Is that also similarly lit, and are there sidewalks and things like that to get
We're
folks to?
extending the sidewalks down to where they are. I don't think there's some sidewalks, I think, between the parking lot and some of the existing buildings. But these when these are used, people kind of walk, kind of just like do a shopping mall, kind of through the space to get to the sidewalk. As far as lighting, I have to look out there. I'm not sure what's there. There are poles there already. I'm not sure the height of the fixtures, however.
Okay, so I think we just need to make sure we understand what that looks like, because hopefully you're going to have events here where you need the extra parking, and we just want to make sure, especially if it's at night, that we've got folks getting to and from vehicles.
Lori, maybe, expanding your comment about the parking, I think one thing that we asked in our review letter was just to provide like a parking calculation for the standard operation of the dome, because, does that 303 spaces handle it? Or, even the regular operation of the dome is going to need some extra spaces, and then, those lots down there might need some more consideration.
With the normal use of the dome, particularly the baseball fields, you've got kids coming with their parents and playing a game for an hour and a half and then leaving. So basically, it's a cycling. So the 300 spaces are more than adequate. We can provide the information that Brendan is looking for.
Okay. Great. Other comments or feedback for the town board from planning board?
Just ask, is there a wind rating for the structure that you're going to put in Fishkill? For instance, for Danbury, it's 110 miles per hour?
Yes, I expect that this will be the equivalent. That's a fairly standard wind rating for these buildings. The wind and snow load ratings are pretty consistent for the Northeast, and that would be the same for here. And the engineer will stamp and seal that.
Other comments or feedback to the town board?
When you when you first came to us, you were definitely baseball centric, and there was no question that that was your comfort area, and that's what your business plan was based on, and your baseball people. And in your mind, when you're designing this, everything is based on your experience with baseball and the number of people and the number of cars and the timing and everything else. Your second presentation started off with everything but baseball as far as venue, I think because we had brought that up. And there were a lot of other potential uses for the facility that may not be as much in your comfort zone as baseball, because again, you're used to baseball. I would think something this unique and spectacular that's in Dutchess County would have other people come to you and say, you ought to maybe try doing this venue or that venue or a non-sports venue, which certainly would be something that maybe you've thought about or maybe you haven't thought about. Would it be reasonable to list all the potential venues that you've already thought about or have had people come to you and discuss as far as what might go on here, which could affect the flow of traffic, the number of people, the time of day, the time of week, everything else. And if there are more people that are companies or whatever, sponsors that come to you and say, "Do you ever think of doing this?" which is totally something that you've never thought about, which may even be less into your comfort area. Would it be reasonable for you to keep a list of all these potential venues and the impact that it could have on all these services you need, the number of cars, the times, and everything else, just so we get an idea of if people are coming to you with things that are a little different, and they may be really something we want here, at least we know that there might be some different impacts than what you're comfortable with.
We're happy to provide those lists to your professionals, discuss it with you here. To my knowledge, there have been no jaw-dropping, eye-opening suggestions that have come that we haven't had experience with. And I think it was my fault. Dan wasn't here for the first meeting when I talked about the baseball-centric concept. And I appreciate your comment. And then when I spoke to Dan and he said, "Well, Steve, you probably focus too much on baseball." His focus on non-baseball was because of my focus on baseball, but it wasn't a function of it being inaccurate. The field configurations were done this way because the notion was it was designed to be an all-sports facility, but baseball is what they expect and hope will be the meat and potatoes from a financial standpoint, but that it is a facility which should and will be used for many other things, and the sports that it can accommodate is any field sport. So all the field sports that guys and girls play in high school and all the field sports that I think you can think of, to the extent someone wants to rent a field for rugby, if there's time available, they can rent it for rugby. If somebody wants to rent a field for flag football and it's available time-wise, then it's certainly capable of being used for that purpose. Any of those sports-related uses, any of those kinds of sports uses, those are the ones that we want to make sure the town says, good, that's a good use, that's a permitted use, that's what you want. The special uses, the other uses that we hope from time to time there'll be a concert or an event or some kind of business function where they need a large covered space, where they want to have displays of whatever they're manufacturing, whatever. That may happen from time to time, and I think when that happens, that will be the type of thing for which we'll be needing to come back for some special kind of permit, because we're going to need more parking. Some of it's going to be off-site parking. These are the more than 1,000 people circumstances that I think the code calls for. But really, all the different kinds of sports uses, we want to be flexible. I know we talked a little bit about the fact that you can't turn the fields around in 1 or 2 seconds from a soccer field, but it really can be turned around extremely quickly for the use. The turf fields are all turf. The dirt isn't really dirt, it's just sand-colored turf. So you can put out orange cones and say, okay, now this is a rectangular sports field in 15 minutes. It doesn't need any super special change. Obviously, for the folks that want a field to really look like a football field, we want to have the ability to use different types of linings that'll make it look as professional as possible. But it's a flat, open space with AstroTurf that can be switched around extremely quickly as the need arises. Whether it's an afternoon need for the high school team to come over and use it for an hour to play soccer, and then there's evening baseball games going on, we want to have the ability to be that flexible with it. But making sure that there's a working list of all the potential field sport uses that we can think of, absolutely, we should work on that and make sure you guys have one. And if you think of any that we haven't thought of.
I'm looking forward to see all the things that would come here.
Yeah, it's going to be remarkable. At the same time that there'll be a baseball game, there'll be a rugby match, or the same time that there'll be a soccer game, there'll be a flag football game. We really expect it to be that diverse, and in doing so, give it a chance for a lot of different people to use it.
No, I think I'm very comfortable with the sports uses and what they may be. Those all seem to be very consistent to the use. But if there was going to be some other type of regular use that's not, we'll call it a sports field type use, I think that's really more what we're getting at. Not the special time like we're having, a concert once or twice a year, but really
regular.
more of the, we're regularly doing something that's not really part of a sports purpose, I think that's really what we're saying, is if there's going to be something else, let us look at it.
Certainly.
Lori, I think also what we learned at the last meeting too was that, using the field as a multi-use field is what's going to create the worst case scenario. And I think from a traffic perspective, we're going to have to look at that because, that, it could be that it would be multi-use fields during the week and baseball on the weekends in the summer. Who knows? I mean, it might, that might be the way it pans out. So we have to look at that worst case scenario.
Have you
Yeah,
ever,
it's really the which set of fields actually creates the most
Right,
traffic.
and I
If there
think
was
we
a
learned,
tournament
I
using
think
that
we learned
set
at
of
the last
fields,
meeting
that's-
that it was the multi-use fields, not the baseball.
Yeah, I think there's a slight kick up in the intensity with teams that have more players on it than a typical baseball field would be. But yeah, we'll make sure all those numbers make sense. It's not astronomically larger, but there are some sports where there's 12 aside or there's 11 aside instead of 9, and so yeah, we have to look at that.
do you have any other domes that have the size of the clubhouse that you're proposing in here?
No, because of the size of this dome being larger than the other domes for this purpose, the clubhouse or the decking will be larger than other deckings. It's a function of what fits this dome. So none that are scheduled to be this large.
Is this the biggest dome?
It will be the biggest Asadi dome.
I like that.
Not that much,
No, they built domes with similar acreage. Yeah, the one in Corpus Christi is
Yeah,
similar
right, yeah.
size.
Can we see it from the space station?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
You can see everything from Google Maps.
If they'll let me up on the space station to take a look, I'll let
Yeah,
you
you'll
know,
take
but
a
I doubt they're
picture,
going to
right?
let me up there.
Other questions or feedback for the town board?
Can't wait for it to happen.
So we'll finalize this, we're going to send the comments back to the town board. We really appreciate you guys being here.
Oh, our
and
pleasure. We
providing us-
appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, I took a few additional notes and I updated some of my comments, so I'll try to get them back to you by tomorrow. That's great.
It's all good.
The next item on our agenda is the Muse at Hopewell, and it's a 68-unit workforce housing request on Route 82 in Palin. And Joe, you guys are already getting it, okay.
Change in the dugout.
There you go.
Brendan, how are you? Good to see you. Hello, everybody. Marty Paggi. Good to see you all.
Joe's recused from these matters.
Hey, Joe.
Subbing in for us.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jay, members of the board. My name is Ken Carney. I'm the president and founder of the Carney Realty Group. I'm here tonight with my son and partner, Sean Carney, and Jeff Contamo and Eric Schwolbum from Insight Engineering. This application in front of you is actually a reapplication from a previous submission. While I won't talk about the previous submission, I do want to talk about what I feel sets my company apart from others in my business. I started this business with my wife 25 years ago, actually here in Dutchess County. I live in Putnam County. Sean lives here in Dutchess County, probably 10 to 12 minutes away. I started on the east end of Beacon back in 1989 when Beacon was in transition. There was a fellow down there who had a vision to renovate these beat-up buildings and create a good environment for people to live. I was the second guy in, I believe, and I worked on East Main Street on 3 buildings. We finished them in 1994. We used a program that had a 20-year affordability period, and the 20-year affordability period has just expired. My other son, Brian, the buildings have now been turned over to him, and he continues to manage them. What's interesting is, although the affordability period has ended, the tendency really hasn't changed. It really hasn't. It's consistent with what we did in 1994. And what we did was, we went in, we built a beautiful product, we do our own construction, and we used high-end finishes, and we rent it to good, working-class people. I used a hands-on management style that I still do today. I interview every tenant before they move in, and in the beginning, it was there were many times where we had vacancies waiting for the neighborhood to stabilize. So we took that model and we continued on. We moved to other towns. We went to the town of Newburgh. We went to Catskill. We went to Westchester County. Primarily right now, after the last 7 years, the majority of our business is either in Dutchess County or Westchester County. Since those first 4 units we've done in Beacon, we've successfully completed over 700 units, and we have another 300 in the pipeline. We do our own construction. We do our own development. However, I have approximately 16 people who work for us. 2/3 of our workforce are dedicated to management because that's what we feel sets us apart. We have changed some of the, we changed the site plan from the previous submission, and a couple of changes are related to management-friendly practices. The inclusion of townhomes. I've used townhomes before when the site allows. Townhomes, you have a front door, you have a back door, you can replicate home ownership. The number of 3 bedrooms have been reduced. I think at one time there was 30 some odd 3 bedrooms proposed. Now there's 26 townhomes. 12 of those 26 have 3 bedrooms, and the other 14 are 2 bedrooms. There's 2 other buildings proposed. One is 24 units, all with 1 bedrooms, and another 18-unit building with 14 2 bedrooms and 4 1 bedrooms. This development, similar to our other developments, but let's talk about Dutchess County for a second. I've worked in Red Hook. We developed 100 units in Red Hook. We've worked in the town of Poughkeepsie. We've worked in the city of Poughkeepsie. We're under construction right now with a second phase. We completed a workforce veterans housing with senior housing 2 years ago in the city of Poughkeepsie, and we just we're halfway through construction of a supportive housing development there. We successfully completed a intergenerational development in the town of Poughkeepsie, and we've worked in Greene County and Sullivan County. But the focus of our business right now is Dutchess and Westchester. In Westchester, we're active in the town of Somers. We've successfully completed 75 units. We just broke ground 3 months ago on another 75 units, and we have a townhouse, affordable workforce townhouse development proposed in front of the town of Somers now, the planning board and the town board. We also have an application pending for funding right now in the town of Paulding. So we're local, we're hands-on. The people who work for us, who manage our places, are hands-on as well. And the management style, in addition to the interviews and the background checks, it's ongoing. We have a on-site manager who works on-site. We have a superintendent who lives there 24/7. If we have issues, and you have issues in any rental property, we deal with it heads-on. During the interview process, we explain to prospective tenants what we expect, and we hope at that time, if they cannot meet those expectations, you would hope that they wouldn't waste anybody's time. The development, similar to our other developments, are funded with tax credits, which are syndicated. It's a combination of tax credits and private equity, and then a bank loan. The rents are not subsidized. The tax credits dictate that there are certain income levels. We have set the income levels for the townhomes and the 2 bedrooms all at 60%, except for a handful. There's 4 townhomes that go up to 90% of area median income, which is as high as between 74 and 80,000. The majority of the townhomes will rent for people with incomes of 50 to 55,000. I kept the rents low on the building, the 24-unit, one-bedroom building, because we're targeting both seniors, and we're contemplating having a set-aside for those individuals with developmental disabilities. So at this time, I'll turn it over to my engineer, Jeff Cantamo, who can go into the site details.
Good evening, Jeff Cantelmo from Insight Engineering, and Eric Schlobaum's here as well on the computer. What we have up here is a rendered version site plan which we submitted, and I'll start by pointing out what's very similar to the last application. We did review the record of the previous application. We saw there was a fair amount of work that went into the planning, and we tried to grab what we thought seemingly worked and then maybe improved upon certain of the other aspects which were worthy of improvement. We have the map that's up north is about at 2 o'clock. The top of the rendered site is Route 82. Along the south or back of the property is the railroad right-of-way and tracks. So our entry point is in the same basic location as the last one, off of Route 82. We come into the site to a small roundabout, which again was the layout that was used previously, and then we go east and west off of that into the two main parking areas. What's a little different toward the east is we have a 5th building cluster. As Ken mentioned, we have 26 townhomes. The townhomes are the far east building and the buildings which will front on the parking and back onto Route 82. Those are all the townhomes. The southerly 2 larger buildings are the apartment buildings. We, as in the other application, are maintaining the historic house on site for use as the superintendent's residence. In terms of what we've changed, we made slight adjustments to the recreation program, which is in the central south part of the site. And we've took a look at parking needs specific to the bedroom count we're going to have, the unit mix we're going to have, and the Carney's experience with these types of projects. Your workforce housing code specifically requires 2 spaces per unit, including the superintendent's unit. We have 68 rental units, 1 superintendent's unit, total 69, which would require 138 spaces. The Carney's experience shows that they don't need that many spaces, and that 98 spaces would in fact suffice for peak demands for this type of development. So what we're proposing is the land banking of 40 spaces, and the land banking would be on the far east end and the far west end. And you know, we've laid those out and graded them out so they could be constructed into the future. In terms of our utilities, we're again proposing to stay on track with what was proposed previously. Stormwater was handled mostly with a subsurface system. We're working out an updated, enhanced stormwater plan. The town engineer in an early discussion did suggest we take a look at surface practice maybe in 1 or 2 of the areas which we're looking at as an alternative. In terms of water and sewer, we're proposing a sewer connection to the town's Hamlet district, which would require force main heading east up Route 82 with a connection at Trinket Lane. And then for water, we're proposing to tie in at Fishkill Road into the county's water main there, and we're going to get into discussions with them relative to that. As far as architecture, the architecture obviously is different, and we will be presenting architectural renderings of the buildings, but as Ken mentioned, the townhomes are intended to give this development a completely different feel. As far as landscaping, we have spent a little more time and effort in looking at how we might be able to screen the development from Route 82, recognizing the traffic that 82 does see and the fact that a change in visual impact isn't necessarily welcomed here. One other small thing we did is on the egress lane at our entrance, we provided a right turn and left turn lane. We do know that, traffic was a concern with the previous application, and the traffic issue really has to do with the main line at 82 and not the introduction of the small peak volume of traffic that'll come from this facility. But we thought the right turn and left turn would at least give the ability for a breakup of that queue. We are working with a bunch of the consultants that were previously involved. The traffic consultant was Phil Greeley from Mazer. The environmental consultant was Mike Nowicki from, I forget Mike's name. Ecosol, excuse me. And we've already been in contact with them and talked to them about taking another look at their studies to make sure there's nothing new that we would need to incorporate into the project. With that, I think I hit the high points. We're willing to answer some questions.
I have a couple of questions. Just to the point, you say you have some of the previous consultants also working on this. Are you using some of the previous materials as well? Is that your intent, or?
Well, our site plan documents, the drawings that are being submitted in support of this are being done by my firm, and we're not relying on anything in terms of water, sewer, stormwater, or site plans themselves. We will be relying on the traffic work that Mazer did and the environmental work that Ecosol did.
Okay, so just reassigned to your application.
Correct.
Okay. The townhomes, what side of the townhome will be considered the front? Is it going to be what faces the parking lot or what faces the road?
Yeah, the intent of the townhomes is that they would face the parking lot.
So the backs of the townhomes would face the road?
Correct.
Okay, and what about for the one that's perpendicular to the road, again, facing the parking lot?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And you said you changed the rec area, but I apologize, I just can't see it. What exactly changed in the rec area?
Yeah, the program changed slightly and the arrangement changed slightly. Where Eric has the hand right now is the area that's set aside for the outdoor rec. That end of, I'm going to say that the west end of that building is where the community room and some of the central facilities will be located. There'll be a community room, there'll be a central laundry there, there'll be the management office there, there'll be a computer room, Ken? And a few little other breakout rooms. And then outside of that back corner of the building, there'll be a patio area with barbecue, there'll be a playground, there'll be a field area, there'll be a gazebo, there'll be benches and picnic tables.
You're
So,
actually going to have recreational space.
correct.
Are you looking to get a waiver on the recreation fee or something?
Our understanding right now from your code is that I believe a half of a recreation fee per unit is what applies to this type of development. Ken, you can maybe address that.
I will not be seeking an entire waiver. I think as we move forward, there will be a discussion.
The last one required a number of zoning changes. What are the zoning changes that this would require? Do you know?
The zoning
What are
change.
the zoning changes that this
Just the
would
overlay.
require?
None. The last time it was a concurrent review of an amendment to the zoning ordinance and the project, but the special permit is in the zoning ordinance, so they have to show that they comply with the conditions of the special permit.
Correct, yeah. Our underlying zoning is R1, and we're seeking the overlay, which has been incorporated in your code. Previous applications were simultaneously pursuing a site plan approval and a zone text change or change to your zoning that would permit this. That change to your zoning has already taken place. We're seeking to take advantage of the workforce housing provision and apply it to the site.
I didn't realize that carried over. So who's going to be the lead agency?
You will be.
We will be waiting.
Yeah,
There's no zoning change, so.
Well, our view, and this is just our view of seeker, I mean, I know you have your own professionals and you'll have your own view, but we did look very closely at the work you did with seeker. We do believe that the work you did before certainly carries over and can be utilized with this application. Whether you wish to reaffirm and reestablish yourself as lead agents or continue it as lead agency, that's for you to discuss with your board. I think it could be handled either way. But in any event, we did submit a fully AF on the new fully AF form, and we also did a assessment of your previous findings for a neg deck relative to the changes in current proposal as it relates to that finding. We submitted that with our initial application.
I wanted to just clarify something, and I think, Mr. Carney, you said this, you said you were contemplating having persons with disabilities allocated here. Is that something that may change, or is that, do you have?
Quite honestly, I'm looking for the feedback from the board. In our other communities, we've set aside anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20% for special needs population. We had been working on a concept where with a, I don't want to name them because I have not brought them into this particular project, but we were working with a special needs provider from the county that works with the developmentally disabled, and they've expressed an interest in providing the services for some of their clients. So the units would be approximately anywhere between 12. There'd be a set aside where there would be a preference for somewhere between 12 and 14. 12 and 14, or probably of the one-bedroom units in that 24-unit building.
Okay, so one-bedroom units meaning one occupant or potentially multiple occupancy?
I would imagine primarily in all of our one-bedrooms, whether it's special needs or seniors, it's 85 to 90% of the time it's just one person. But we haven't committed to that.
Okay.
So I just looking for feedback.
And how many would be senior?
There's 24 in that building. So
So you're proposing a whole building would be for seniors?
there would be a mix. The developmentally disabled and the
in that
senior,
building.
that building would target the seniors and developmentally disabled. The seniors, of course, could live in, the other building is 18 units. We primarily, in our senior developments, we primarily build one-bedrooms. We just started building two-bedrooms. We built a few hundred units, all one-bedrooms. And now there's been a change in our model, and we've incorporated two-bedrooms. So you could have seniors in the 18-unit building in the rear on the right. There's 4 one-bedrooms and there's 14 two-bedrooms, so that would be suitable for some seniors as well.
When you say seniors, is that 55 and over, 65 and over? Is there a?
55 and over.
So those may be folks still in the workforce. And
The income limits I mentioned previously, we have to recertify the tenants every year. We recertify the tenants, and it's an interview process. We go and we do inspections, and the tenant's income can go up. They don't move out. Many of our tenants exceed, after they move in, their income goes up and so forth and so on, and the rent is supposed to go up accordingly. They're supposed to pay 30% of their income for the rent. So, and we have that in both senior and workforce units. When, we find that that happens quite often when you recertify the tenants.
But once they're in, they're not required to leave.
That's correct. Unless it gets drastic, I think the numbers, if their income goes up to 140% of median income, and that's rather high.
And that's all based on what the state requires as opposed to?
The area median income, Dutchess used to have their own county income limits that were produced every year. But lately, they've grouped Dutchess in with Orange, and I don't think Ulster's in with them anymore, but we're kind of grouped in with Orange County as well.
But the requirement with regard to percent of median income and things like that,
Yeah.
that's a state requirement for the
It's a requirement under the tax credit.
taxes, okay.
And this is also affordable beyond, what, 40 years, is it now?
50 year.
50.
There is, you can elect, up until last year, you could elect either 30 to 50 years. In last year's, they put out an RFP for the tax credits every year. Last year, they suggested very strongly, if you wanted to be considered, to go 50 years. If that suggestion is still there next year, it would, when we plan on submitting, we would go 50 years. But in the past, our previous developments have been from 30 to 50 years. I want to make another point. We own these long-term. This is a limited partnership. What happens with the tax credits, we use a large investment bank, Raymond James, you've probably heard of them. They're one of the leading providers of equity for tax credits. Sean and I have successfully closed 6 deals with them, and we have 2 in the pipeline. And what they'll basically do is, let's say you get $1 million worth of tax credits. Raymond James will come in and give you 95, 96 cents on the dollar. And they, in fact, buy the tax credits, and we form a limited partnership. And Sean and I are the general partners. We drive, we control the deal. We build it, we manage it, and we own it. But the limited partners get the tax credits, and they also get the depreciation. It's a 15-year term. The way we structure our deals is at the end of 15 years, we pre-negotiate to buy them out at 15 years. So at the end of 15 years, there's a buyout where Sean and I will either reposition, when I say reposition, refinance the property or just buy them out, and then the Carneys continue to own it long-term. And now with the second generation in the business, I had 3 sons, the other 2 escaped, so Sean was the last hope. And all of the properties that we have managed, that we have, it was a concern of mine. But now we do have a legacy plan, and I think that's important for the town to realize. Well, we're in this long-term. We're in this long-term. I don't sell property. When I do, I break out in a rash. I'm in this long-term.
Michelle, anything we should review at this point? I know we've had some initial review of the plans.
Yeah,
but-
just the couple of differences. I mean, I think largely the proposed development is within the envelope that was already considered with seeker. Obviously, the visual will change based on the fact that the units are going to be different looking.
Especially with the one building now that's perpendicular and much closer to the road than.
Correct.
I think we just need to see the rendering.
Correct. And then I just got some intel based on the conference somebody in my office went to, that they're going to be also listing a bunch of other bat species. And I think it's coming in October. And I believe it's the long-eared bat that's next, and possibly others. So it really may curtail what goes on as far as removal of trees and timing. I mean, it may really affect a lot of what's happening with projects. So that.
So wait a minute, well, hold on, when you say it may really affect, is it affecting time of year trees can be
It
removed?
may
Or is it actually
affect whether or
stopping
not you
trees
take
from-
trees down at all, because these are different species and they may have different habitat requirements, and it's not exactly clear. I know long-eared bat definitely, but I don't know about the other species, and so we don't know exactly what's happening. And as a result, we need to make sure that anything that was done previously for this project with DEC, just because there was a maternity colony hit for the NHP letter. I don't believe you're taking down a huge amount of trees, so you're probably safe in that regard, but just you need to make sure that that's handled.
Yeah, I'll just comment on, yeah, we've talked to Mike Nowicki about updating that information, and we saw in your memo that was in there. we are taking down very few trees. It's primarily field. I know most of the board's familiar with the site, but there will be some tree clearing, and we will incorporate any new mitigation that we find into the plan.
Anything else we should review?
The other thing, just a lighting plan at some point, when you get to that point, so that we can review the lighting. And then obviously the landscaping as well, which it sounds like you've been working on the landscaping plan. And I think that's about it. They have the wetland permit that they've got to deal with the DEC for the disturbance to the adjacent area for the installation of the sewer force main. And I think that's about it.
And I think specifically with regard to the view shed here, you have a lot of residential neighbors. So what they're looking at, if it's changing, we need to understand what that looks like. So if you can just provide renderings, what it looks like today and what the proposed view is, that'll help us understand. I think especially knowing that the backs of the townhomes would face the road, I'm not sure how much they would actually be visible from the road, but we want to understand that. We want to kind of get a feel for, are there going to be balconies off the backs, or what exactly is that going to look like? So as you have renderings, proposed renderings of the buildings and things like that, I think that's something we're going to want to be able to share at a public hearing as folks come out to take a look at it. All right, do you have stuff you want to?
I just have a couple quick questions on the water and the sewer. Just to the extent, I know that you're going to be submitting your detailed technical documents, but at this point in time where the things that are being considered are agency reviews and circulation, who we circulate to, I'm not sure what your plans are. I'm not sure if you know what your plans are as far as what your arrangements are going to be with the county for water and what your arrangements with the town are going to be for sewer. My understanding is that the project is in neither a water or sewer district.
That's correct.
So if you're contemplating a sewer district extension, it may require some approvals from state agencies, or if it's going to be contractual, it may not. So those kind of things, I think, on the 50,000-foot view level need to be identified at this point.
Right. We very early discussions, again, with the town. We'll be yielding to the town as to whether we're an in-district or out-of-district sewer user. That's really at a level beyond us to decide that, and we're willing to listen to both of those. Those are our two options, I believe. Obviously, expansion of district would involve town board action, map plan report revision, et cetera. As far as the county arrangement, we have not yet got together with them. We did see that some progress had been made with the previous applicant on that, but we believe we are planning on meeting with the Water and Wastewater Authority to discuss what arrangements we could make with them for water.
And the only issue we have is we have one water district that draws water from the county main, and it has a trihalomethane problem that
Correct.
we have to give notification to our residents. And we're working to try to get alternate water away from the county line because of the chemical reaction and the delay in water. So I don't know how that would be dealt with by, a single user that has a direct deal with.
Right. Obviously, we would have to deal with that same issue, and I did see correspondence relative to that issue, and that's important.
And then the other factor I think would be of concern is we know that the town and city of Poughkeepsie are going to do an $18 or $20 million filtration project, and how is that going to be passed on and the impact it would have to the water supply here?
Okay.
Cost-wise, I guess that would be.
Okay.
Tom, what about the logistics of making those determinations before they can actually circulate for lead agency?
Well, no, I mean, we could circulate. I mean, certainly Dutchess County is going to be, the water authority would probably be readily identified.
Okay. Okay. That was all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Brendan, from a traffic perspective, I know we had a failing intersection from the perspective of the entrance with the last application. I don't know if the change in the...
Yeah, nothing really has changed. I mean, Jeff indicated that they did modify the entrance to have a two-lane exit, a left and right turn lane. Doesn't have a significant impact on the level of service. It, has the potential to improve operation a little bit, where it would break up that queue. And if enable at least the right turner to get out. It's really the left turn that's the big delay, and as he indicated, it is because of the level of traffic on 82. If you recall from the public hearings that we had previously, lots of discussion from the neighbors across the street about the difficulty of entering 82 during the peak periods. It's sort of isolated to their site. It's it's going to be an issue for the people that live there. Once that traffic is out onto 82, it doesn't have much of an impact to adjoining intersections or even to 82 for that matter, because I think the level of traffic is only in 12 to 14 car range. It's not in the peak hours. It's not super significant. One of the comments I did put in there, and I know it might seem a little drastic at this part in the process, but if you look at that view of the site, the last two driveways to the west are commercial driveways. I think one is to the driving school and one's to the beverage center. The other ones all to the east are residential driveways. Those are the people we heard from a lot at the public hearings. If there was a way to configure this site to where the entrance drive was to be located, further to the west, and you would be able to really seal off, maybe some of the visual impact to the people across the street. It's something that should, at least I think maybe should be explored, because it replicates more of a commercial driveway than it does of a single residential driveway because of the number of the apartments. So it could be more suited to the opposite of that.
Headlights and things like that too now, as you have
Sure.
parking that's more exposed. Okay.
I realize, I can see the value of the roundabout and the layout and all that other stuff, and I can't quite exactly visualize how it would look if the driveway was over there, but I think it might warrant at least a look-see at that. As I'm sure we're going to see all of those same people again, when the public hearings are opened. The rest of my comments were pretty routine in terms of, and I think they indicated in their correspondence they're aware of them, being able to address the design vehicles. We did have a lot of discussion last time about being able to accommodate at least a WB40 being able to turn around in the site, and I think we did finally get there. I think the fire apparatus might have changed in the town since the last application, a little bit bigger, but we can get you that information. School buses, it was our understanding last time that they wouldn't enter the site, but I think they can be accommodated. So if in the future, and we would like to see the site demonstrate that it could handle a school bus, just in case those rules or requirements ever changed in the future and a school bus was able to come into the site. Obviously, you'll need a New York State DOT highway work permit. And then the last, we also just need to look at part of that requirement is going to be looking at the site distance along 82, which is adequate. I think where the entrance drive is now, to the east or to the right of that, there is some vegetation and some embankment that we need to see where those sight lines are to make sure that that area stays clear and the sight lines stay open. That's all I have.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from board members? Do you have other questions for us?
The only one I would have is the relocated entrance. We actually did consider that early on, and we veered away from it because we thought this layout kind of had been vetted and was preferred for some reason that we couldn't put our finger on. But is the board desirous of us looking at the entrance to the west?
If you're able to do that, especially with the change to the way your layout is, I think it's worthwhile to at least, I don't know, if it's not feasible, but at least see if it's feasible.
Okay, yeah.
As a
We
layout,
can do.
because the more you can have traffic and headlights and things like that not facing residential areas and facing into a commercial area, commercial site, it's better, especially where you're going to have queuing potentially in evenings or in mornings where it's still dark and that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, we'll look at it as an alternative and come back to the board at something.
I'm not sure what that does to the roundabout or how that changes the circulation. I think you still have to be able to get cars able to turn around, but,
Yeah, the roundabout probably would have to move to the end or something,
Right,
we probably would
exactly.
swing in and bring it all the way to the end to provide for an adequate turnaround or something like that. I mean, we'll take a look at it.
and maybe it's still, maybe it's a main drive up at the top if you're making the left-hand turn up by where the commercial area is, and maybe have the right out or
Right
something
on,
like
yeah.
that, and right in and right out or something a little bit further down, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
right in doesn't make
for the
sense.
number of units and traffic we have, I mean, a single entrance would be our preference, so.
Okay, well, then, I mean, I'm
We'll
just
look,
saying.
we'll look at the western option. The only other question I have is procedurally, I saw in your code that this type of application, because it is a special permit, and the special permit is granted by the town board, that there is some back and forth between the planning board with site plan review and the town board with special use permit review. Can you just help me understand how that will work?
Yeah, Tom, can I ask you to help us with that?
Sure. Once the planning board feels that the initial application package is substantially complete, you then would do three things. Is number one, we'll have to discuss the secret process, whether we have to recirculate, et cetera. Number two, you would refer to the town board for their comments. And number three, you refer to Dutchess County because it's on a state highway. And then those comments come back to you, and then we would finish or proceed with the secret review, come to a conclusion of that, and then the town board and yourselves have to hold a public hearing. You can hold them jointly, you can hold them separately, that's the town board is more or less looking at it, whether or not the overlay is applied to this piece, and then the planning board's looking at it for the site-specific details, the location of buildings, everything we talked about tonight. So my recommendation would be, I think, is that we just take a look, give everyone a week or two to finalize our comfort level with it. I think Michelle and I have to review, and Larry, the SEQR status, and then we can come back to you at your next meeting to let you know what we feel on SEQR. And,
Okay.
obviously, we talk to you.
Okay.
And I was going to say, I want to be very clear because there's some of what I read, I felt a little ambiguous about whether or not we were reusing the original application.
I think we have to
or
take a
whether-
look at that. I mean, I understand what the applicant's saying, and I think we have to evaluate that. I mean, I'm not saying that we'll throw out everything that was done, but, certainly it seems to me that there are a few nuances that will have to be addressed.
And as much as it's still relevant information and it's still current information, I'm all for
Right.
not reinventing the
Right.
wheel, but there are definitely differences here, and there's things that I think we need to just make sure we've got the right.
And also, I think part of it would be, too, for you to analyze whether you could possibly change the entranceway. I think the board's being too polite. I think prior applications, they asked and asked and asked. And
Well, we don't
they
want
were
them to be
granted-
too polite.
They weren't even granted the courtesy, in my opinion, of at least showing why it had to be discounted.
Okay, yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that was a
the
big-
record I reviewed didn't quite send that message, so I'm happy to hear that, because we would love to come back to your next meeting. I don't know when it is. If it's, gives us enough time, we'd like to come back and present that alternate to you, just, again, schematically, to see if it's something that does make sense, and if it does, then we can build on that.
If you have it, and it's something that we could have at least a day or two, at least maybe a week ahead of time. May 6th would be the next meeting that we have, where you might have a discussion with us.
Okay, why don't we...
After that is May 20th.
Yeah, why don't we plan, as Mr. Wood said, staff can discuss some things, and we can work just on that alternative and get it to you a week before the 6th, and come back on the 6th and further the discussion on it?
Is that sufficient time for us to make a determination where we think there's additional things to be studied or updated? I know you already mentioned the bats and some of the other things, but I think we just need to be very clear what is being recycled and what needs to be refreshed. And
I can,
That's
my
too
stuff, I think
soon,
for
then I
my
don't wanna
stuff,
set-
I can do that. I'm not sure about the sewer and the water, and that's sort of out of my purview.
Well, why don't we do it this way? We'll do our good faith effort. If we fail, you'll have to forgive us and, work on additional time. I mean, I can't guarantee that, we'll be there, but.
Well, and you have to have that information into us before we can put you back on the agenda too. So you have, if you have that in and you want to come talk to us about it, whether or not we have the full review done, we'll make sure you know whether or not we're ready, but,
Okay, fair enough. Very good. Well, we appreciate your input. Thank you very much.
all right, thank you. Thank you. All right, that's the end of our agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor? Thank you, guys.
I think we're looking at them.